from those who want to cause them harm, and most importantly, that you help them to understand that to have wisdom is to be able to listen and to take actions that are for the good of all people and not for themselves. Lord, continue to have your hands upon us, our families, and our businesses, and that in all ways remind us to be a reflection of you in all things. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so we got a lot to cover. Let me go ahead and start showing my screen now. And everybody see my screen okay? Yes, if you can, give me a thumbs up. Wonderful. So 21 Days of Real Estate Riches. Everybody should have gotten their packet for week 2. Did you guys get your packets? Yes? If you didn't, check your spam filter. It went out much earlier today, so everybody should have got by now. So does everyone have their packets? Yes? Week 2? Really? That's scary. So nobody printed anything out for tonight? Oh, well, that's a problem. Because we were going to take some actions now. All right, no worries, no worries. You do have your AHA sheets to take notes, yes? All right, so if you did not get your packets, let me pull up the chat real quick. Okay, so several of you, what I would suggest. If you didn't get your week 2 packet, it's probably in your spam filter, okay? So that would be the first place I would strongly encourage you to go check. And if it's not there, then obviously we need to, figure something out. But in the meantime, there's 2 handouts that I wanted you to have available for tonight. So if you don't have your packets, what I will do is post both of those handouts in the Facebook group, and it'll be clearly labeled as Day 11 handout. And you can grab them there. And there may be more than 1 or 2. And then what I would do is just take really, really, really good notes. And then when you do download the forms or you do get your packets, then obviously fill them in accordingly. Okay? Are we cool with that? Can we do that? Yeah, yeah, okay. So everybody got a chance to go listen to the audio files for day 10, the Water Boy? Yes? Yes? Okay, so I see somebody says their packet arrived at 4:52. That's kind of late because it went out much earlier than that, but still. Okay, somebody says printed. Okay, great. So it looks like several people. So it looks like the people who didn't get it are in the minority, and I apologize to you, but it looks like the vast majority did get it. But in either case, I will be uploading as soon as we finish off today into the Facebook group the specific forms I'm going to go over, and they will be labeled as Day 11 forms here. Okay, so if you guys had a chance to listen to the Water Boy case, I certainly hope that you guys went ahead and posted in the discussion. So on the Facebook page, it says Day 10, the Water Boy, and then it says specifically there's 4 different parts that you can download, and then it specifically says post your comments here. And several of you did. So if you didn't get a chance to post your comments about the Water Boy, then please, by all means, listen to it. And I want to get some feedback. I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are. If anybody wants to post something right now on the Zoom, I'm okay with it. I'll take a minute or 2 if you guys want to just say something in the Zoom about, what you thought about the Water Boy case. Was it helpful? Was it not helpful? Did I, break it down in such a way that you have a fairly good understanding of what we're going to be doing for the next couple of days and really next couple of weeks? But I would like to hear your thoughts on what I covered in the Water Boy case, if you want to comment on it now, or again, feel free to because maybe you want to sort of gather your thoughts a little bit, feel free to comment in the Facebook group. So really cute to hear about beer and milk and water coconuts. Thank you. I try to be creative. I try to come up with some more interesting ways. The added value part was a big aha. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Any other comments or thoughts about It was good, but do I need to say in a deal to be formed LLC? We're going to talk about that tomorrow. There's a slight difference in how we write up contracts today versus how we wrote up contracts 17 years ago when I came up with the original 21 Days Real Estate Riches course. So we're going to talk about, we'll cover that tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big day, folks. I'm gonna just go ahead and get it out of the way right now. I'm gonna try to go easy on you guys today and get done a little early today, but every time I say that, it never happens, but I'm gonna try. Do or do not, there is no try, right, Yoda? Okay, so I will do, I will do and get us done a little bit earlier today because tomorrow is gonna be a long day. And not that I'm intending it to be long, but tomorrow we're gonna go over how to fill out the contract. And we always get boatloads of questions on that issue. And so tomorrow I will cover the specific language that needs to either be in the body of the contract or needs to be in the general addenda of the contract, okay? So we'll cover that tomorrow. I don't understand the question. I'm sorry, Robert, but flies to wholesale EG. Maybe you're having a little issues with your keyboard, but I don't really understand what you're saying there. Alphonsus is very helpful the second time around. What did the client really want and how is best delivered? Thank you. Yeah, sometimes you got to listen to stuff twice or three times to really like get the gist of it. Totally get that. Insightful. Don't change what's working. Thank you. Yeah. Record the water boy. It's like I listened to it, you know, I did it 17 years ago. I've listened to it a couple of times over the years. I listened to it before I started this class. And I'm like, dude, you can't do any better than that. Just give them the files. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. It's, you know, it's close to perfection. Leave it alone. Even though there are some things we're going to update again tomorrow when we go over the contract. Be honest. Yep. Always be honest. Now, honesty and disclosure are not the same thing. And we'll talk a little bit more tomorrow in the following days about the difference between being honest and disclosing. You know, being honest, being honest is when your son, as I said before, is when your child tells you don't feel good. Disclosing is when they tell you everything that just happened because they just threw up and you need to have every swirly detail. It's like, enough. Just tell me you don't feel good and we'll go clean it up. I don't need all the details. Similar is true when it comes to business relationships, and of course, writing up contracts. And I'll explain in greater depth what I mean by that tomorrow. Don't try to do something that has a higher profit that doesn't have to demand a product. I mean, yeah, that's, you know, I don't necessarily get everybody who's in line in agreement with me. There are some people who believe that, hey, if you make the most amount of money and the other person is disadvantaged, you know, their problem. They should, you know, caveat emptor. They should have done their own due diligence. They should have done their own thing. I'm kind of a believer that if you know that you're going to make money, but the likely result, the likely outcome is that the person you're doing business with is going to be damaged or hurt, that's not a good deal. And I just believe it's going to come back and bite you later on. So yes, thank you for that. I was listening intently to how the son began losing the business and what suggestions were made to regain the business. Thank you. One-stop overall and clear understanding of wholesale. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that was the intent. At the end of the day, the intent was to use an example that wasn't wholesaling to bring greater clarity to what we're about to do. Starting tomorrow when we start writing up contracts, and then the following day getting those contracts out the door. Why clips are charged the term wholesaling? Okay. Stay with what works. Stop trying to be clever and cute. Oh my goodness, isn't that true about most things in life? Keep it simple, Sherman. KISS. Can you please share which document you had to add someone's name to while waiting to submit the paperwork at Preston Street? You made mention of this in part 3. More than likely the document I was the operating agreement. And so I'm going to go over the contract tomorrow. And the following day, I'm going to go over the paperwork you need to assign a contract. Okay, so step by step, how to do a contract. Day 12, step by step, how to assign a contract once you actually have somebody saying, yes, I'll buy that deal from you. And I'm pretty sure I will cover the specific document that I mentioned in the water boy. Is Brookview one that you will recommend? Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. I don't believe Brookview's still in business, to be honest with you. And so at the time, that was the #1 lender I was talking about. Today, we're working with a different lender. And over the years, we've worked with different lenders. So I'll put this in the chat box. I would suggest you write this down, because of the fact that lenders do kind of come and go. Real Investors has been around for 20 years, but lenders kind of come and go. What I generally do is tell people to go to realinvestorloans.com, and whatever lending relationship that we have vetted and have some kind of an agreement with and that we're recommending at that time will be there. And if for whatever reason you're listening to this in a recorded fashion and we are currently in between relationships, or we believe that there's several different players that can offer kind of the same service, when you get there, you'll see a list of lenders as opposed to one specifically. So right now we have one specific lender we're really happy with. We've been working with them for over a year. Periodically, the owner of the company, the principal of the company, comes into the Dealmaker workshop at Jesse and explains their philosophy for doing business. Their core beliefs and their way of doing business is very much in line with ours. So just go to realinvestorloans.com, and it will forward you directly to their website. And you're going to want to go there today. You don't necessarily need to go there right now, and I'm going to put this in the chat box right now. But you are going to want to go there at some point, because they're the ones who are going to give you your proof of funds letter. So tomorrow, when I start going through the contract and I mention you need a proof of funds letter, I'm going to talk about the 3 different ways to get proof of funds. I know I talked about it before. And I'm going to say the fastest, easiest way to get a proof of funds letter is to go get a letter from a hard money lender. And I will direct you to go to www.realinvestorloans, because on their website, all you have to do is fill out a brief survey and they will give you a proof of funds letter for free. Isn't that nice? There are some hard money lenders that actually charge $200, $300, $400, $500, and many of them who do charge, they have expiration dates on those letters that typically don't go beyond a couple of weeks. This particular lender doesn't charge, and this particular lender has a fairly extended expiration date on the letter, so you can use it for multiple offers for multiple weeks, if not months. Okay, so that's Real Investor. Either I got fat fingers or a really skinny keyboard. Loans, LOANS.com. Go to realinvestorloans.com, and there you can get what you need. All right. Don't be greedy. Yep, doesn't pay to be greedy, because if you really take advantage of your customers, sooner or later the world finds out. You don't want to take advantage of your customers. Discuss with your spouse. Yes, generally speaking, it's a good idea to keep your spouse in the loop, especially if they're going to have to get involved in the business. But let me tell you one little secret, one little technique I used to get my spouse involved in the business in the early days. Every time I got a check for $5, $10, $15, $20,000, I gave it to her to go deposit in the bank. Some of y'all got that. Every time I got a check, I would give it to my wife and say, hey, honey, if you don't mind, could you mind going by the bank and deposit in the check? And after doing that on several deals, she's like, I get it. You know, you're making money. I don't need to know anything else. Go deposit your own darn checks. But in the early days of this business, especially if you're married, don't be surprised if your spouse is a little skeptical, because maybe this is the umpteenth time you said you're going to make some money. And the previous times you didn't make any money. In fact, you may have lost money or spent a boatload of money. And so one of the easiest ways to make a skeptical spouse or a skeptical partner or adult children who just sort of like, are you still doing that real estate thing? Show them the checks. What better way to show them the checks and say, hey, would you mind going by the bank and depositing in this check for me? Trust me, after about 2 or 3 times in doing that, they become big, like, would you please get out there and go do some more deals? So that's my little insider secret on how to do that. So you also said we should not say flip houses. What should we say? I'm a little less strident about that today. And the reason why is when I first got started in this business in 2001, excuse me, Baltimore had just gone through this huge, quote unquote, flipping scandal where the FBI had a field office and they literally carted a bunch of people off to jail for quote unquote house flipping. In fact, you can, and I think a lot of the quote unquote reality TV shows changed the nature of people's attitude. But back when I first got started in this business almost 20 years ago, If you said you were a house flipper, they're like those guys in the Baltimore Sun that did the perp walk, because that was the term and that was the label that was placed on it for people who were basically buying houses using unscrupulous appraisers and unscrupulous title companies and unscrupulous lenders. And they were buying the house for one number and then putting little to no improvements in the house and then reselling it to first-time home buyers who were predominantly using FHA/government loans. And people are putting their life savings into buying these houses. And within 30 days, they realized that there was stuff behind the wall that was busted, that was broken. And when they got their contractor, oftentimes from the Yellow Pages, y'all remember the Yellow Pages? They actually had Yellow Pages back in the day. Google was still that new kid on the block when I first got started. Today, everybody Googles everything, right? So, and what's that other one? Somebody's List, Angie's List, right? So back in the day, you go to Yellow Pages, right? And you find a contractor come in and say, well, your house needs $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of work. Because when I rip out this wall, I see that the pipes are old, it's still got asbestos, there's no insulation, blah, 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 blah. And people were just getting suckered. And it's not possible for that to happen unless everybody's lying who's a part of the process. So the real estate agent has to lie, because in Maryland, when a seller sells a property, they have to sign off on a form, a disclosure form that says that that's in the house. I'll go over that tomorrow when we go over contracts and how to fill out a contract. The appraiser has to lie by saying that the house is worth a certain amount when they know it's not worth a certain amount. And the title company has to lie because they're sort of pushing this thing forward as though this house has been, you know, renovated top down. And reality is all they did was slap on a coat of paint on a house that really needed $40,000, $50,000 worth of work. And so everybody in the chain was lying, and that just got totally out of control in Maryland, predominantly in Baltimore, and gotten so out of control that the Attorney General of Maryland actually had issued a pamphlet called House Flipping Scams. You may be able to find it. It's in the original version of the 21-day course, but this problem has so gone away, I'm not even really putting that out there other than the fact that somebody asked me. Somebody says I'm lagging. Hang on a second. I'm so sorry. I'm lagging because I'm on the wrong Wi-Fi network in my house. Thank you for saying something, by the way. I have a. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. So I actually have my own Wi-Fi node in my office, and I was hooked up to the Wi-Fi node downstairs, so that's why I was lagging. So thank you for saying it, whoever said it, to bring that to my attention. And anytime that happens, please let me know, because I do want to have a good quality recording, and I want you guys to be able to hear me clearly. So anyway, what I was saying is that the whole flipping thing had gotten so out of hand that the Attorney General at the time of Maryland had printed up a brochure called House Flipping Scams, or Maryland House Flipping Scams, and had all these little graphics that said, you know, if you bought a house and it's like this, you probably may be a victim of a house flipping scam, and you should have your house inspected. Well, that's the other thing. The inspectors, because almost everybody anybody who's a first-time home buyer or home buyer to live in hires a home inspector. That's pretty much the norm. And so the home inspectors are also on the take. Now, here's the deal. FBI set up a field office. Lots of people go to jail. Say, why would the FBI get involved? Because most of these homeowners were using FHA or federal government secured loans. And as a result, the federal government was really taking the hit, because what was going on was these houses were either the houses were going into foreclosure and FHA was taking the hit, or the homeowner was demanding that somebody buy them out and give them their money back, in which case the government was taking a hit. So it had gotten to be so bad in Baltimore that the Attorney General of Maryland had a pamphlet, and every real estate agent in Maryland had to hand that out on every transaction. The FBI set up a field office, and they carted off people to jail by the hundreds. I mean, this was on evening news. This was Baltimore Sun. I remember going to a seminar in my early days. There was, in fact, that's how I met my attorney. There was a legal continuing education seminar. I think it was either on property acquisition, or it may have been on rentals. I can't remember the topic because you're talking at least 17, 18 years ago. And the guy teaching the seminar was my current attorney, Jim Goodrich, one of my attorneys. And there was a woman in the class. I'll never forget it. He taught it at the in the ballroom of the Kimpton Hotel, which is a really nice hotel. And we had to break for lunch, and there was a place to go right downstairs for lunch. And I will not forget, there was a group of us who were sitting there having lunch together, just talking about the class and how we were enjoying the class. And even though it was an attorney CE class, it still had great value, and it was dirt cheap. It was only like $100 or something like that. And the woman I sat across from at the lunch table, there's like 4 of us that shared a table. I'm like, well, how long you been in? We were also like, how long you been in real estate business? What's your experience? Blah blah blah. So it must have been on property management. I think it must have been, the topic must have been property management or lead paint, and something about lead paint, you know, blah 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 blah. But long story short, the woman was there and she said, you know, I've got 150 houses. Oh my God, 150 houses! Wow. How long you been at it in this business? She said, I'm not in this business. She says, my boyfriend just went to jail as a part of that big house flipping sting operation. Those were her exact words, that house flipping sting operation. And he stuck me with managing all these houses until he gets out of jail in 7 years. I'm like, whoa. So, you know, again, that was almost 20 years ago. And part of the reason why I don't talk about it so much, and part of the reason why it's not such a problem, is because it got to be so bad that people just stopped generally using the term flipping until the house flipping shows came along. The house flipping shows came along, you know, on reality TV, and that, you know, sort of that changed everything, because, you know, what was flip this house, flip the flop, blah 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 blah, and so flipping became sort of a household word with a totally different connotation. And that kind of flipping was, you buy a house, you rehab the house, and then you turn around and resell the house. Now, we still call that rehabbing, just to be very clear, again, because we're in Maryland. And then flipping, I don't think flipping is an accurate description of what we're doing and what I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you how to, quote unquote, flip contracts. And I'm also teaching you, quote unquote, how to flip LLCs, because when we are going after board or realtor deals, we can't really freely flip the contract. So we have to put an LLC, we have to put our clone in front of us, and it's the clone that we really flip, and the contract goes with it. Well, flipping clones is not nearly as popular as flipping houses. But if we were to really be correct in our language, and I'm, you know, anybody know me for a while know I like to be correct in my language, we would call it flipping LLCs as opposed to flipping houses. So it's just easier for a multitude of reasons to call what we're doing wholesaling. Am I nearly as strident on the phrase flipping as I was 20 years ago? Nah. Because the whole reality TV platform, the reality TV thing has sort of redefined what flipping is. That's number one. Number two, you can't really freely do the kind of stuff you used to be able to do 20 years ago. Meaning, when you go buy a house or sell a house, excuse me, because it was really on the selling side that was bad. When you sell a house today, you don't get to recommend the appraiser. So in order to make that flipping scam work, I had to recommend the appraiser. The agent had to recommend the inspection firm. Well, you as an agent don't really recommend an inspection firm. In fact, Maryland passed a law 10 years ago where anytime, actually 12 years ago now, anytime a real estate agent recommends any kind of a vendor, lawyer, title company, et cetera, they have to recommend 3. And they have to go online and certify that those entities are licensed in the state of Maryland. So if I'm a real estate agent, I recommend a contractor to a client, to my client who's buying a house, I have to recommend that they use certain contractors. Now, what I do is, quite frankly, because that's the other out, I don't recommend contractors at all. I don't. Or if I'm recommending, but first of all, I don't recommend contractors because the ones I really, really like, I don't want you using, because then I won't be able to use them when I need them. But the other reason is, when I recommend a contractor or comment on a contractor, I'm generally not doing it in the capacity of me as your real estate agent or your real estate broker in the act of you buying a house. If I were to do that, I'd have to go online, certify that they're licensed, And then actually there's a form I have to fill out that I give you, blah, 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 blah. But if you're coming to a deal maker workshop, or you're doing an office hours with me, and I'm not actively representing you on a deal, and you ask me, you know, who's a good contractor, or I'm thinking about using this contractor, I just tell you what I think, and I don't have to research or do anything. I just tell you what I know based on firsthand experience, and that's okay. That's not a violation of the law. But the laws have changed, not to a great deal, but enough that a whole lot of the stuff that caused those flipping scams is a lot harder to do. A lot harder to do. I mean, you really, really, really got to be crooked, and there's so many red flags that are going to get raised that, you know, your broker's going to catch you, unless of course you are the broker. And it's just, it's a lot harder environment to do the kinds of things that people were doing back in, you know, 2000, the 90s, the 80s, et cetera, when it became a big problem. So no, I don't generally make as big a deal out of using the term flipping, but I still don't think what I'm teaching you guys can accurately be called flipping. And if we're going to call it flipping, call it what it is: flipping the contract, flipping the LLC, flipping the deal, as opposed to the more generic flipping, which, and again, part of the problem with using the word flipping is, what are you talking about? Are you talking about buying, fixing, and rehabbing a house? And that's your definition of flipping? Or are you talking about putting a property under contract using a generic contract that you then had your attorney approve? Or are you talking about some of the things that I'm teaching you guys over the next couple of days, which is putting a property under contract through a brand new LLC, and then flipping your ownership in the LLC and having the contract go with it? So flipping's not necessarily the right term unless I go further. It's like, why bother? Just call it wholesaling, because everything I just described for you with regards to putting a property under contract and assigning the contract or assigning the LLC is in fact wholesaling. So just call it wholesaling. And that's what I do, because I'm just kind of lazy that way. Just all right. All right, somebody already told me that I was hanging up. Thank you. Is that when the requirement of seasoning and proof of cost to renovate? So all those questions that you're asking Diane, I'll cover tomorrow when we cover the contract. Sherman, sounds fine on my end since you made. Thank you. Appreciate that, Shiva. Good to know. Sounds good. Sounds good. Cool. All arm's length lenders, no direct interaction with appraisers. Yeah, I mean, thank you, Carlos, for saying that. That's the other thing that's a big change that really, that changed really with the 2009 meltdown, which is that even lenders now can't hire appraisers. They have to, the appraisers go through sort of a round robin kind of thing that happens, and the lenders basically go in and put in a request for an appraiser, and this system generates the name of an appraiser, and the lender has no direct involvement in the hiring of appraisers anymore. So again, a lot of the stuff that used to go on that made that whole sort of flipping scam happen, just it's difficult to make it happen today like it was 20 years ago. Where do you go to verify if a contractor's license is certified? Thank you, Henry. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll go to the contract. But generally speaking, the state of Maryland has a website that you can go to and do those searches for anybody who's licensed. So as a sort of blank generic statement, the agency in Maryland that's responsible for licensure is the Department of Labor Licensing, DLLR. That's where the Real Estate Commission is housed. That's where anything you can think of that requires a license is going to happen in Maryland at DLLR. And so it's just sort of a generic statement. You can go, if you want to go tonight, just sort of search it out. Go to, just search in Google MD DLLR, because I don't, well, you know what, let's look it up. You're asking me, and this is a class, and I should be teaching and not be lazy. So let's just go ahead and do it. All right. So Google Chrome, share screen, and I type in MD DLLR in the search bar, and up pops Maryland Department of Labor. So we go to Maryland, and it's www.dllr.state.md.us, and I click on it, and here's all, you know, they call it quick links, like quick links. But go up here to the top where it says licensing. And so here's, you know, all the boards and commissions. So all the boards and commissions in Maryland come underneath DLLR if that board and commission is responsible for some kind of licensure. So here's appraisers. So if I need to find a licensed appraiser, here's architects, here's athletic agents. Oh my God, Maryland makes agents for athletes get a license. Athletic commission, barbers, cemetery oversight. So if you want to know who's licensed to run a cemetery, certified interior designers, certified public accountant, cosmetologists, elevator safety, examiners of landscape, foresters, heating, ventilation, air conditioning contractors. So if you're dealing specifically with HVAC issues, heaters, air conditioners, heat pumps, blah, blah, blah. Home improvement contractors. So again, depending upon whether it's an HVAC contractor or a home improvement contractor, here's the links where you would go to search for their license. So if I click home improvement, there's a home improvement commission. They have oversight over the licensing. They have oversight if there's some complaint, right? And then somewhere in here, you think they'd make it easy. There should be a search feature so you can actually search to see who's licensed, which is kind of weird because like, here we go, but there's actually no search. Now in the forms I'm going to go through tomorrow, there's a very specific form that realtors have to use. And on the form that realtors have to use, there is the embedded link. But as you can imagine, like any state website or federal government website, it's as long as a piece of spaghetti, right? So I don't know why they don't have, oh, here we go, license search. Duh. It's like, why don't you put it here? No, we got to put it over here. So I got license search. And here's where I get to search for home improvement contractors, okay? And I can search by name, trade name, location. If there's a salesperson, if I know the contractor's license number and I want to search to see if their license is active, because that's a game that a lot of, thank you, Diane. That's a game that a lot of folks play where they actually say, okay, I am licensed. They give you the license number, but their license has been expired for 3 or 4 or 5 years. So that's where you go. And the place to start is, like I said, DLLR. Just Google. You know, just don't try to get a brain cramp, right? Just Google MD for Maryland and DLLR, Department of Labor Licensing Regulation. Then once you click on DLLR, it takes you to the DLLR website, shows you where the links are. Go to the licensing link. I didn't see real estate. Oh, there it is, Real Estate Commission. So if you're looking for, see who's got a licensed real estate, go to Real Estate Commission and you hit search. And then you go name, you know, is this guy Sherman really got a license or is he lying to me? And you only need to put in the name. You don't need to put anything else. And boom. There's all the Raglands who hold real estate licenses. And you can see licensed broker for 2 entities in Maryland, Real Investors Real Estate Services and Real Investors Referral Services. That is our referral company for people who want to place their license on quote unquote inactive status, right? And so, or excuse me, no, I said that wrong. Scratch that. That's for people who want to place their license on referral status. And the #1 reason why people want to put their license on referral status is because they don't want to pay the board of realtor fees. So we had to set up a separate company that's a referral company, and anybody who's a member of the referral company, they can get referral fees like bird dogs do, but they don't have to pay all those board of realtor fees because this particular company is not a member of the board of realtors. Isn't that a neat little trick, neat little workaround? Learn that from Long and Foster. Learn from the best. All right. So anyway, that's how you search. And let me go ahead and stop sharing that screen and start sharing back to this screen so we can get into the slides. And let me just see what you guys are talking about in terms of oops, why did that do that? Let's see what you guys are talking about in terms of chat. Somehow I lost my chat box, so it'll come back. All right, moving right along. So back to the lesson plan. So if you haven't done so, please check out the Waterboy. They are audio files. I apologize, I could not find the original video. So that was actually shot originally as a video when I was participating in a live training. And we then turned it into 2 CDs, and that's the reason why it's in 4 files, 2 files per CD. So uploaded them, they're available in the Facebook group. Please listen in. I think you'll get a lot out of it. I really do. All right. So here's where we are. Quick Cash Generator, week 2. Today we talk about building our team. You are here. And as my mentor, Jim Rouse, said, You learn this business by doing it, So now we start the process of actually doing the real estate thing, okay? Which takes us to a quick refresher, quick reminder. Well, while I'm doing that, some stuff's popping up in the chat. Let me just make sure that I'm caught up on the chat. Where do you go to verify contractors? I showed you that. Thanks for the info about appraisers. Wondered why my house could not appraise my house. Ask the class if my screen is freezing. Is my screen freezing now? Okay. I'm not seeing. Okay. DLLR. Thanks, Mark. Sherman, can we go over how to apply for an EIN? Sure. Frank, where are you? We were doing Frank's entity the other day. Frank, did you actually ever hear from the state? If you did, just type it in the chat box. Let me know what's going on, Frank, with your entity that we created, and whether or not you actually heard from. Okay. Not yet. Okay. So when we were doing Frank's LLC the other day, we were going to go to the irs.gov site and actually order his Social Security, his EIN. And as I said before, an EIN is to business what a Social Security number is to a human being. So we go to irs.gov. And everybody see this okay? irs.gov. I'm gonna blow it up a little bit. Oops, wrong direction. All right. And there are different ways to get there, but the fastest, easiest is to go to this little checkbox right here. Apply for an employer ID number, or EIN. And again, EIN, employer ID number. EIN is to business what Social Security is to human beings. So again, because you have created an entity that in the eyes of the government is its own thing, it has to have its own number with the government to open up bank accounts, to accept checks, because the government's going to tax it. And the government can't tax it unless it's got a number. So click on apply for EIN, whole bunch of gobbledygook on what you need. Don't worry about it, blow past it, hit apply now. Then you see this screen. I got a couple things blocking that are related to Zoom. First thing it asks you, can you guys see this okay? US government is for authorized use only. In other words, they don't want you spamming, scamming, right? So click OK. And then it takes us to here and talks about why you need an EIN. You only need an EIN if you're going to open up a bank account. If you're not going to open up a bank account, or you're not going to get a check in the name of the LLC, you don't need an EIN. And there will be instances where you don't need an EIN every single time. All right. So hit begin application, and look, there it is. Look at that. It's so cool. Let me blow it up again. It's working. So, Frank, you were going to get an EIN for your operating LLC because that was your operating business. So you would click limited liability company and then continue. And it's going to give you a little explanation. What is, right? LLCs are not incorporated. You guys already know that because I went over it over and over and over again. An LLC is a limited liability company. LLCs do not incorporate. LLCs file articles of organization, not articles of incorporation. Corporations are corporations. So you're not going to file articles of incorporation. All right. All that's really nice, but you don't really need to know. Continue. Then, how many members are in the LLC? Now, this is where a lot of people make a mistake. You go to asset protection seminars, you go listen to people like our own Abera Okoye, who says, never, ever, ever form a single member LLC. It should be a multi-member LLC. Here's the problem when you tell the IRS that you're a multi-member LLC. It wants everybody's Social Security number. Ain't nobody got time for that. When you first create your LLC, you are creating it as a single member because you are the person creating it. If you are using an existing LLC as the quote unquote owner or creator of the new LLC, you are still a single member LLC when you apply. You want to say one. But my accountant said, well, when you go see your accountant and you tell them that you said one, notice it's pre-populated with one, right? That's because I've done this before. When you go tell your CPA what you've done, you're like, okay, I've been doing this business and I want you to come clean up my junk behind me, then they can go on the website and file for 2. That's fine. But I'm telling you, if you tell the IRS you got 2 members, IRS wants to see 2 social security numbers up front. You ain't got time for that. Create it as 1, fix it later with your CPA. Especially, for goodness sake, those of you who listen to the Waterboy case, are you guys now understanding we're going to be creating lots of LLCs? Clean water, clean glass. That's a single member LLC. You're going to create the LLC. You're going to do it as cleanly as possible. You're going to basically get that property under contract. You're then going to assign your interest in the LLC. And if the buyer of your LLC 1 week later, 2 weeks later, a month later decides to keep your LLC, they're going to have their CPA go on the IRS website and change the classification. They're going to go back to the state of Maryland and change the name of the LLC. And they are most certainly going to go back to the state of Maryland and change the resident agent and the contact information. Do not gum this up by saying your LLC has more than 1 member when you know for a fact at the beginning, the outset, it's got 1 member and it's you, or it's got 1 member and it's your pre-existing operating LLC. Because when it starts asking for social security numbers and EIN numbers, and now you got to start putting multiple numbers in here, you're going to be sitting there going, maybe I should have listened to Sherman. Got it? All right, I see a couple questions popping up in the chat box. Let me see what you guys are asking me. I have an EIN and an LLC in Virginia. May I use the Virginia LLC to conduct business in Maryland? Or like what part? Oh, sorry. I'm about to go off on Dawn, but Dawn just got here. Welcome, Dawn. And I know for a fact you were not here 2 days ago when I gave that lecture, so forgive me for going down a path I shouldn't go. Dawn, I actually spent a very lengthy period of time. Does anybody remember what day that was where I talked about the formation of the LLCs and why we need to use Maryland LLCs? Was that day 6? Okay, thank you. So Dawn, you now have access to the Facebook group. Please go in and watch from beginning to very end the section I gave on how to form an LLC. And I'm going to give you the short answer, but there's a longer answer, more thorough answer, the answer you really need to hear on day 6. But fundamentally, the reason why we need to form Maryland LLCs if we're doing business in Maryland is because Maryland has a law on the books. Surprise, surprise. Maryland is what I call a deep blue state. Okay, a deep blue state, meaning it's a very consumer protection, consumer oriented, and it likes to tax everything. Remember, we had a governor before the existing governor who decided that we should tax rain and rainwater in Maryland, right? So if it moves, Maryland politicians believe that there should be a tax slapped on its back like a turtle and collect it any way you can. Fortunately, we have a everybody says, I hate Republicans. Well, I got to remind you guys, Maryland has a Republican governor and he has the highest rating in the country, right? But the bottom line is, I shouldn't say that because one day somebody's gonna be watching this 10 years from now going, what the heck's Sherman talking about? We haven't had a Republican governor since Larry Hogan. Yeah, okay. So see, now I'm doubling down on stuff I shouldn't be doing. All right, anyway, in Maryland, we have a law on the books that says if you are buying a property and you are not a resident of Maryland, or you are using what's called a foreign entity, and in the eyes of Maryland, any corporation or any LLC or any partnership that was formed outside the boundaries of Maryland is considered a foreign entity. The title company has to withhold 6% of the transaction. So that means on a $100,000 house, the title company is going to withhold $6,000. So if you are the seller of the property and you're using a Virginia LLC, DC LLC, DC Corp, Virginia Corp, anything other than a Maryland-based entity, you are considered to be a foreign entity and they're going to withhold 6%. So on a $100,000 house, that's 6 G's. On a $200,000 house, that's 12 G's. On a $300,000 house, which is starting to come into the real range, that's 18 thou. If your wholesale fee is 10 grand, you ain't going to see a nickel of it at the settlement table. And the reason for that is the state wants to make sure that the taxes are collected. So what will happen is the title company has to put 6% in escrow, and you get that back when you file your taxes the following year. And so if most people Tax year ends December. Many people file their taxes in April, but most entrepreneurs and most investors don't file their taxes until October. You're not seeing that money that the title company's holding until October of the following year. That sucks. And then the other issue you have is if you don't file as a foreign entity and you are a foreign entity, technically you have no business doing business in the state of Maryland. And as such, if there's any hiccup anywhere along the way, you have no standing to sue. And technically, if you are a foreign entity and you're doing business in the state of Maryland and you should have filed at the door before you came into Maryland, technically, even if there is no hiccup, you are committing fraud because you are representing to the parties you're doing business with that you are in good standing and you're capable. And the first person who's really going to catch that is the banker when you go to open up an account. But if your accounts are in Virginia, but you're doing business in Maryland, that's not going to get caught. But the second person that's going to catch it, and they're really going to catch it, is the title company, because the title company is the one that's in charge of making sure that everything gets followed properly. And since they are also the one that's bringing the title insurance policy to the table, if there's anything that is done improperly, there can be a title insurance claim, and no title company wants there to be a claim on a title policy that they wrote. So they are very strictly by the book. They're going to ask the buyer, they're going to ask the seller to present their credentials. If you are an entity that's either buying or selling, then the title company is going to first go to the Maryland State Department of Assessment Taxation website, SDAT, and see if you're in good standing. When they go to see if you're in good standing, if you have not filed as a foreign entity and you're a Virginia-based company, the first thing they're going to flag is you have no business doing business in Maryland. And therefore, because you have no business doing business in Maryland, the contract that you ratified is not enforceable. And that's where your whole deal starts to fall apart. So you got two choices. File as a foreign entity and let them keep your money, or don't tell anybody and it gets flagged at the settlement table and your whole deal falls apart. Or third choice, form a Maryland LLC and do everything through your Maryland LLC, if that's where you're going to be doing business. And the great thing about LLCs, and I talk about that in day 6, is your existing Virginia LLC can own your Maryland LLC. LLCs, corps, partnerships can own LLCs, but your Virginia LLC cannot own an S Corp. So a lot of people say, well, can I use an S Corp versus an LLC? Depends. S Corps can only be owned by individuals, not corporations or LLCs, and S Corps cannot be owned by non-American citizens. And S Corps can have a limitation on the number of owners, stockholders that can own it. So there's a lot of restrictions on, and again, I talked about this in great depth on day 6, so I'm not going to do it now. But the short answer to your question is you can, but you don't want to. You can do business in Maryland as a Virginia LLC, but you don't want to, for the reasons I described, and many, 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 many more that I talked about on day 6. Also, and again, I mentioned it on day 6, good to know, there's no difference in the amount of money you pay to either file as a foreign entity or to create a new entity. There's no difference. It costs you the same amount of money, that you pay the same fees to the state. But the repercussions of being a foreign entity are pretty severe if it is your intention to sell the property and make money. Well, if you're wholesaling, your intention day 1 is to sell the property and make money. So you want to make sure that you're set up properly from, as my mother would say, the get-go. And that's really what the past several days have been about. So when you get a chance, please go back and watch day 6, day 7, day 8. And today, of course, is day 11, where we sort of like roll up our sleeves and talk about the team. But the whole formation of LLCs, et cetera, is on day 6. So anyway, back to this IRS Gov site, because they were getting ready to knock me out. So you select one member, right? One member to keep it simple, and then it asks for the state. So select the state, and then hit continue. And so it says, since you are a single member LLC, you will initially be classified as a disregarded entity for the purpose of filing federal tax returns. Anybody want to guess what that statement means? You're classified as a disregarded entity for the filing of tax. You ain't got to file any. And guess what? If you listen to the Waterboy class or case or recordings, we want to offer clean water and a clean glass. If I give you choice A, form an entity get an EIN, even if you need one, because technically you don't even need an EIN to do the wholesaling piece. But if you needed one, you can either form an entity, get an EIN, and there's no tax requirement, and hand that over to the buyer, because there's only one member, you're single member. Or you can screw this thing up royally because you didn't listen to me, put in 2 members. Now you're classified as an entity that must file taxes, pay taxes. And then when you hand the LLC over to somebody else, the first thing that's going to happen is the title company says, well, you say that you're a multi-member LLC. I need to see 2 names, 2 signatures, 2 social security numbers, or a social security and an EIN number. And then even after you do that, buyer's going to come back to you and say, wait a minute, you said this is clean water, clean glass. I'm finding out that I got to file paperwork with the IRS the day I took your entity. What were you thinking? We can either do what Sherman says, or we can make it up as we go along and pay the price. Who wants A, keep it simple, keep it clean water? Who wants B, let's just junk this thing up 9 ways to Sunday and hope the deal goes through, right? All right. So since we selected single member, how did that happen? Because back here we said 1 when it asked us. I should not go back on federal government websites because it doesn't do what I think it's going to do. Right? Here it said how many members? I said 1. Right? 1. Then state, Maryland. Right? Then continue. Okay. Due to the number of members in your limited liability, how many members in our limited liability company? 1. You are considered a single member. Hello. And since you are a single member, you'll initially be classified as a disregarded. What does the word disregarded mean? In the eyes of the IRS, it means it doesn't have to file tax returns. It doesn't have to pay taxes. That's what disregarded means. We tend to say pass through, but that's not the language the IRS uses. IRS, for their purposes, defines an entity that doesn't have to file its own tax returns or pay taxes as disregarded. Because in their mind, we're going to disregard the fact that you even exist. Everybody else got to pay taxes. Everybody else got to file tax returns. Even if your income was 0, you still got to file a tax return and say 0. Unless, of course, you are a disregarded entity. Now, fortunately, it's a hot link, so you can click on it and see exactly what it says. I am not going to do that, but for those of you who want to do that, and sooner or later you'll need to do it, go read what it says. And if Sherman said something wrong, feel free to put it in the chat box. But I kind of know, after having done this a couple of dozen times over the years, I kind of know what it means, even if I don't get the exact words right. Now, what's the reason for getting an EIN? For most of us, it's really banking purpose. We're going to open a new banking account, and the bank is requiring us to have an EIN. You can select starting a new business. That's fine. You do not want to say hired employees because you didn't. When you start saying hired employees, it's going to want to look for quarterly filings for your W-2s. Well, you're not going to have any W-2s, okay? So don't say hired employees. Change type of organization? No, it's not a change type. It's a brand new entity. Purchase an active business? No, you did not purchase an active business. So you really only 2 choices are starting a new business or banking purposes. For whatever reason, I just picked banking purposes, right? In the old days, it meant something like they were going to expedite getting the paperwork to you because you needed to open a bank account. I don't think it really means anything today because nobody's really putting anything in an envelope. All right, then it's going to ask you for your name. It's going to ask you for your middle initial, which I think is optional. Yeah, there's no asterisk. It's going to ask you for your last name. It's going to ask you if you have a suffix. And look, it's going to ask you for your social security number. What do you think it would ask if you said there was 2 members of the LLC? 2 social security numbers. Don't screw it up at the beginning. It will only bite you in the butt later on. All right. So I'm going to stop right here because at this point, once you do fill it out, it just basically generates the information. And the only thing you really got to know is once you click that button, I think there's a screen to ask you to confirm. And I think there's also, it asks you whether or not you want it mailed or you want it delivered to your desktop as an electronic document. What do you think you guys want? You really want them to stick it in an envelope and mail it to you so you can get it in 3 weeks? No, you want the and basically it'll say, do not close the screen. and it generates the document, and poof, you have your EIN in your hands less than 5 minutes. Seriously, less than 5 minutes, okay? So any questions on any of that I just walked through? Ulysses, does that help you? Because Ulysses was the one that asked me to do this, but I had also promised you, and thank you, Ulysses, for reminding me. I promised to show you how to do this 3 or 4 days ago when we were working on setting up Frank's LLC, day 6, okay? So Ulysses, you good? Thank you, sir. Ulysses is good. If Ulysses is happy, everybody happy. All right. Oh, and then it's going to ask you, are you the owner member? Are you third party? You're the owner member. Click that button. It doesn't hurt you any, right? I think if you say you're third party, then again, it's going to ask you for additional information. Stop clicking buttons that require additional information, especially when you're government websites, especially when you're IRS website. Keep it simple. Keep it straight. Keep the daggone glass clean. Got it? If you got it, give me a thumbs up. All right. Thank you. All right. So now let's get out of there. Let me see if anybody else got any questions before I get out of there. What do you put if you wanted to include your self-directed IRA as the member of the LLC? Raymond, that is a question that is well beyond the scope of this training. I'm not really getting into self-directed IRAs. That's a whole thing in of itself, but I'll be more than happy to discuss that if we have time left. If we have time left in this class towards the end, day 21, because day 21, as you guys know, is going to be just like the others, you know, so day 7, day 14, day 21 are all open office hours where you can ask me anything you want as a way to get caught up. So no new assignments on those days. So Raymond, if you ask me and nobody else is asking me anything, but understand this, in order for me to give you any kind of advice, even generic advice, which is what it's going to be, I have to know more about your specific situation and what is the nature of your self-directed IRA. And that may or may not be something that you want to share in a public setting, okay? Yes, clean water, clean glass. What would you happen to know the site where I can check to make sure my LLC name isn't already taken? So again, Aaron, that was day 6, where I talked about going to the state website to see if the name you want to use is available and then what your options are. So I covered that in great detail on day 6. So please go back, watch day 6. Don said the same DLLR site. Nope. DLLR is responsible for labor licensing and licensure, and SDAT, State Department Assessment Taxation, is responsible for businesses and property, because that's a taxing, the reason why the state wants to know who your business is so they can tax it. The reason why the state wants to know what property you own in terms of real property is so they can tax it. So that's a function of the State Department of Assessment and Taxation, whereas licensing is a function of Department of Labor licensing. So two totally different entities, two totally different websites. The only thing they have in common is they're both located on the State of Maryland website, okay? So both Aaron and Dawn, excuse me, I have a very good friend named Dwan. So when I see Dawn written out like that, it gets a little tricky. Please, both of you guys, go back and watch the full recordings and the full walkthrough on how to set up your LLC. Because a lot of the questions you guys are asking me and more, I go into great depth to explain that on day 6. Pass-through taxes, is that different? I've kind of explained that. IRS has their own vernacular. They like to use fancy 25-cent words. We like to use nickel words, but they kind of sort of mean the same thing. Do you have to put in your social security number? Yes, D. When you get here, you either have to put, now here's here's where it gets crazy. Anybody remember why we're here on the IRS website? What are we applying for? Anybody remember? Type it in the chat box, please. What are we applying for? What exactly are we applying for here? Why are we here in the first place? Put it in the chat box. Yes, EIN, 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 employer identification number. And as I said before, EIN is to businesses what social security numbers are to individuals. So I'm on the IRS website applying for an EIN, and all of a sudden it says, put in your SSN or TIN. Well, what the heck is a TIN? A TIN is a tax identification number. Well, what's a tax? That's what the IRS used to call it before they called it EIN. It's the same. Oh, no, I'm wrong. It actually, I need to wear my glasses when I do this stuff, guys. Tell me to wear my glasses. It actually says ITIN, and I suspect what it means is international tax ID. So if you're outside of the United States of America, I don't know if you guys can see this or not because this was a pop-up. So Social Security number, SSN, is a permanently assigned 9-digit issued by the Social Security Administration. An individual taxpayer ID is tax processing number. IRS issues ITINs to individuals who are required to have a U.S. taxpayer number, but do not have and are not eligible to obtain an SSN. So I guess somebody who's living in the country, foreign national, and I guess you don't have. So let's put it this way. You will know whether or not you have a Social Security number or you're operating under an individual. What did I say, international? Individual. Most of us, the vast majority of us, have Social Security numbers. Yes, D, it wants you to put it in. To get your EIN for your entity, it wants to know your SSN. I suppose you could try to put in your EIN for your operating LLC. And the worst thing that could possibly happen is it just rejects it, which quite frankly is not the end of the world. But that's what it's asking for, okay? All right, so is everybody good there? Everybody understands how to get that EIN? And again, the EIN, in my opinion, and I'm not giving legal advice or tax advice, so if your tax advisor tells you something different, fine. And if your tax advisor tells you Sherman's an idiot because he had you form a single member LLC, then go ahead and let them go on to irs.gov and fix it for you. But I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about if you were going to be using LLCs to wholesale property. And if for some reason we are asked to provide a tax ID number or EIN, employer ID number, for our LLC. And again, don't let the fact that it's an employer ID number throw you, because at the end of the day, we're not hiring any employees. We don't want any employees. We're not hiring any employees. Make sure you do not click the button that says you're getting an EIN for employees. Because once you click that button, then you're gonna have to file quarterly reports and file Social Security numbers, okay? Dice, do you still offer resident agent services at Real Investors? Yes, we do. Please go back and watch day 6, where I actually talked about how to utilize the Real Investors resident agent services, because that's required. It is required that you have either a resident of the state of Maryland or a business that's a resident of the state of Maryland when you file that paperwork. And I should stop calling it paperwork because everything's done online today. But when you file online to create your Maryland LLC, you also at the same time have to say who your resident agent is. And I talked at length on day 6 about how you satisfy that requirement, okay? All right, so with that, I'm gonna stop sharing the IRS screen, go back to my slide screen, and let's pick up on the lesson for this evening. What is that? What is that? Did I click the wrong thing? Something just popped up on my screen. I have no idea why. Okay, but we do have the right screen. Ba, 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 ba. And I just need to, there we go. And I just need to find the chat, because if you get, well, it'll pop up when you guys start asking questions. So here we are on day 11. And the way I want to start day 11 is just, again, a quick recap of our deal makers blueprint. So you guys have seen this before, yes? The deal makers blueprint. So these slides will look very, very similar to the slides I showed. I think that was day 7. The deal make, yeah, day 7. So we talked about the 7 steps to putting together a deal. You guys remember what they are? Let's go through them real quick. Number 1, generate leads. Generate leads. We want a cost-effective process to generate as many leads as possible. All right, sorry, IRS is asking me to either keep on clicking or get off, so I need to just go ahead and close that window. All right, a cost-effective process to generate as many leads as possible. Oh, by the way, if we decide to pursue a strategy, we're going into the MLS and we are hacking the MLS, what is the mechanism by which we generate leads when we're looking at MLS deals? If you want to put it in the chat box, go ahead and type your answer. How do we generate leads going into the MLS? And there could be a number of different answers. All right, so some of you guys saying home snap, home snap. The correct answer is you don't need to generate leads. Just by virtue of the fact you're in the MLS, and I guess technically HomeSnap, right? By using the tools we give you to gain access to the MLS, the leads are already there. You don't have to go out and generate any. By the way, how cost effective is it if you tap into a database for free that has all the leads you want already there waiting for you? Does that qualify as cost effective? Give me a thumbs up if you think that's cost effective. Yeah. So like one of the benefits of going after MLS deals or deals that are in the MLS is the leads are already there. We don't have to buy any bandit signs. We don't have to print up any yellow letters. We don't have to go around knocking on doors. Everything is already there in the MLS. We just need to get proficient at learning how to search using that HomeSnap tool. And again, the only reason why I'm a little hesitant to say specifically HomeSnap is because before we did HomeSnap, we had Listing Book. And before we had Listing Book, we had Matrix. So the way it changes, today it's HomeSnap, tomorrow it may be something else. So don't get hung up on, is it HomeSnap, is it Listing Book, is it Matrix? Don't get hung up on that. Get hung up on the fact that because you are working with me, or for that matter, working with any real estate agent who gets it, they're going to give you direct access into the MLS. And the tool that they use to grant that access doesn't matter as much as the fact that you now have access into the MLS, which means you don't have to go out and generate leads. They're already there. All right. So when we go the MLS route, is the lead generation already taken care of for us? Yes? If I like that idea, it's already there. All I gotta do is open up the app, play around with it, figure out how to search properties, right? But it's all there, right? It's already done for you. All right, next. Step 2, we want a system for evaluating leads to quickly pick the potential winners from the losers, and more importantly, a system that we can sort of make sure we're avoiding the paralysis of analysis. All right, tomorrow I'm gonna walk you through how to write contracts. And it is my intention to only do that tomorrow because it can get really long in the tooth when you guys start asking me questions about the contract. It is my intention on the day after tomorrow to walk you through the Mayo formula and walk you through deal analysis. Some of you might be thinking, well, why don't we do deal analysis before we do contract? In a sort of perfect world, I do them both together. But I know kind of how people's eyes glaze over a little bit, and I have to go through things a couple times in the contract. So I just kind of want to let it be a standalone day. And that also gives you an opportunity to sort of go through the contract again on your own for a night before we actually get into, okay, here's the real information that we actually need to fill in the blank. I could have done it a different way, but that's how I've chosen to do it. I'm the teacher, you're the student. Bear with me. Trust me, just trust me, right? So day after tomorrow, I'll go through the deal analysis tools. That doesn't really change, quite frankly. The deal analysis, the procedures and the things we do to do deal analysis for MLS deals are exactly the same as the deal analysis tools for FSBOs, right? And real quick, here's your quiz for tonight. Impromptu, spontaneous. If it's not a FSBO and it's not in the MLS, where do you find it? And if you've been paying attention, you know the answer to that question. If it's not a FSBO and it's not in the MLS, where do you find it? Wow, I cannot stump you guys. You don't. Nowhere. Doesn't exist. Yes, that's correct. It's either a FSBO or it's in the MLS. And the absolute minutia percentage of deals that fall through the cracks, it's not even worth discussing. I mean, it really is not even a nit, right? So bottom line is it's either going to be in the MLS or it's going to be a FSBO. Now, here's the deal. When you do your step 2 evaluation for FSBO deals, the technique is the same. And part of the technique and part of what you need to do that is utilizing the MLS. In other words, something called pulling comps. And I'm pretty sure that even though we haven't got to that yet, most people understand the phrase pull comps. Most people kind of understand, okay, I kind of think I know what pulling comps is. Here's your bonus quiz question for tonight. Where do you go to pull comps? Where do you go? And by the way, whoever unmuted yourself, whoever unmuted yourself, please mute yourself. When we're in this part of the class, that really is a huge distraction for everybody, including yours truly. So please keep your thing muted. If you want to unmute yourself as a part of the class, come early, because those who come early get to ask me questions. Hint, hint. All right. So where do we go to pull comps, folks? Exactly, the MLS. So even when we start doing FSBO deals, we're still going to run back to the MLS when the time comes to do that deal evaluation, that analysis. So I kind of sort of need to teach you about how to do MLS stuff up front before we start talking about how to do FSBO stuff. Does that make sense to everybody? Give me a thumbs up if it does. Okay, great, thank you. All right, next. Next. Step 3. We need a process to tie things up while we do a more thorough analysis, more thorough due diligence, excuse me, and of course, find the buyer. What do we use to tie up deals that pass that sort of first initial deal analysis that we're like, this looks promising, let's go ahead and tie it up? What do we use? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So everybody's got the right answers. Contract. Oh, D, go D. D put contract with a weasel clause. That is, of course, the correct answer. That is the more thorough, correct answer, right? And then, of course, folks say written contract, not just any contract, but written. Yes, written contracts, ideally with the weasel clause. So if we got to get out of it, we got to wait to weasel our way out of the deal. Now, when you get into the world of commercial, then we can start talking about letters of intent, or LOIs, okay? But we're not doing commercial in this class, okay? So we don't need to even bother talking about LOIs or letters of intent. And as I told you guys a couple of days ago, the whole reason and the purpose of LOIs and why LOIs came about in the first place is because when you're doing commercial deals, contracts are very expensive because the contract is unique to the deal. And it is not uncommon to spend $7,500, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, depending upon the complexity and size of the deal. It's not unusual to spend, 10 grand or more just on the contract. Well, who in here wants to spend $10,000 every time we want to make an offer on a house? Nobody. And some of you won't even be in the game, much less out of the game. What if the deal doesn't come through, right? So in the world of commercial real estate, it is very common to use a letter of intent as a way to, quote unquote, tie up a property temporarily while you're writing the contract. And usually that letter of intent is drawn up in such a way that the parties start exchanging information back and forth, so that there's very clearly this, quote unquote, meeting of the minds. I talked about that when I talked about briefly about contracts several days ago. We'll talk more about that 8 conditions for doing a contract. That's how we'll start tomorrow. So don't worry about if what I just said sort of went, phew, don't worry about it. But letters of intent really are reserved for commercial deals. If you start using a letter of intent on a residential deal, you really, really, really are going to look like a rookie. We just want to, quite frankly, because contracts are so inexpensive when we're talking about residential deals, we just want to jump straight to a contract, okay? Now, big question for tonight. When we're going after MLS deals, where do we get the contract and what do we pay for it? Where do we get the contract and what do we pay for it? There's quiz question number 3. Sherman's on a roll. He's quizzing us to death tonight. And I cannot stump anybody tonight. Yes, we go to our agent, we go to our realtor, we go to our broker, and typically you pay nothing for that contract. Got it? You don't pay anything, not for the contract. Because when we're doing MLS deals, we're going to use border realtor contracts. By definition, if it's an MLS deal that we're going after, we're going to use border realtor contracts. We're going to have one particular weasel clause that we need, and we only need one, and I'm going to share that with you tomorrow, so don't get ahead of yourselves. Don't like, what is it? What is it? Tell me what it is. I can't sleep tonight. No, you will sleep just fine. I'll give it to you tomorrow. Right? But the most important thing, go back up, we want to tie up the deal, if the deal looks good, before we start talking about raising the money, bringing in the rest of our team, finding a buyer. and we want to tie up the property long enough so we do have time to go find that buyer if in fact we are not already shopping for deals based on who's on our buyer's list. Okay, everybody got that? All right, step 3, we want to tie that baby up with the right contract. Step 4, we want to go get the money. Again, depending upon the type of deal and amount of due diligence involved. If we're just wholesaling the deal, we're not responsible for getting the money. Our buyer is responsible for getting the money. But those of you who listened to the Waterboy case yesterday know there's tremendous value in bringing a lender along to the table to your buyer, just in case the buyer that you want to wholesale the deal to either A, doesn't have a lender, or B, that lender may be out of the market temporarily, or C, maybe your lender is more inclined to loan more money, cheaper money, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, absolutely, Dave, that's the value add. And the more value you add as a wholesaler, the higher the fee, the higher the profit. I should stop saying, when you're a wholesaler, you don't charge fees. That's what bird dogs do. When you're a wholesaler, you earn profits. The higher your profit will be, the more value that you bring to the table. Does everybody understand that? Does that make sense to everybody? Add value, higher profits. Add value, higher profits, okay? All right, so step 4 is go get the money. And in the case of doing wholesaling, we're not getting the money as much as we're making sure that our buyer has access to money. And if for whatever reason our buyer doesn't have access to money, we want to introduce them to our money source, the person who gave us the proof of funds letter, and see if we can incentivize them to use that particular lender. And that's adding value, all right? Step 5, engage your team. So we got it, we generated leads, we put it through a deal analysis, deal looks promising, we put it under contract, we go assist in getting some money. Now we want to engage the team to help bring this fish into the boat. Got it? So let's talk a little bit about this team. Those of you who have your packets, you should have printed out something called team roster, okay? Do you have your team roster? And let me go ahead and pull that up. I'll pull that up on my computer so you guys can see it a little bit better, okay? Team roster. Roster, not rostered. I have a team rostered. And, oops. Let's drop that on all those little teeny icons. Sherman, you need a bigger screen. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing this screen. I'm gonna start sharing this screen. And some of y'all be like, "Pow-bam!" Can you see that? Whoa! Okay. So, team roster. Let's talk about it. At a bare minimum, and I don't care whether you're doing phase 1 deals or phase 2 deals, you kind of need to have a team supporting you, especially when you're first getting started. Because when you're first getting started, you don't know really a whole bunch of anything. Can we just be honest about that? And the more time you spend in this business, the more people you'll get to know, the more people you'll know who you can trust, and the easier it'll be for you to build your team, okay? But in the beginning, you're kind of going to have to rely upon others to help you fill out your team, fill out your roster. So let's talk about who should be on your team. Well, how many people think that you should probably have a mentor or a coach when you first get started in this business, especially if you have, right? So the first question you should be asking yourself is, why do I need one? And what exactly do I expect them to do? And how long do I expect them to do it for? So as an example, we're doing this 21-day class. And some of you guys are getting a lot out of this 21-day class. You guys getting a lot out of this 21-day class? Yeah? Yeah? But this 21-day class is only going to go for how many days? 21. But at the end of the 21-day class, you may be like, okay, I intellectually understand what Sherman said to do, and I did my homework, and as a result of doing my homework, I actually did a couple of things that make sense. But gosh, I still wish the guy was around a little bit longer so he could kind of look over my shoulder to make sure I'm doing it right. Anybody already sort of kind of feeling that way? Kind of feeling a certain kind of way? Like, okay, Yep, help me do this. Then Sherman's, is there a way you could sort of like stick around in my life to help me actually do this, and you be looking over my shoulder for the next 21 days to make sure I'm doing this right? Yes. Okay, so that's a reason to have a mentor or a coach around. Maybe there's something in this business that you just have a burning desire to know. And then once you know it, you're like, oh, is that all that is? I got a burning desire to know how to do lease options. Oh, I've got to do lease options. People talk about lease options all the time, right? And so you get yourself a coach to walk you through the process of doing lease options. And then you do your first lease option. You're like, is that it? Is there anything else? No, that's it. Right? Well, in my mind, and in my opinion, and my opinion only, so it only matters to me, may not matter to you, a mentor is somebody who can kind of take you from point A to point Z, or as they say in England, Great Britain, UK, point A to point Z, right? And that's somebody who you might typically have a relationship with for years, right? I have a mentor named Bill Glazer, and he's no longer officially serving in the capacity of my mentor, but for 7 years, he was my mentor in helping me to sort of untie the knot in business building, not real estate. Real estate wasn't his thing, but just building a business and how to correctly build a business. And Bill was my mentor in that. And then Bill sold his company for a ridiculous amount of money. And then unfortunately, a couple years later, he had a stroke, and took him about 4 or 5 years to recover from the stroke. And we continue to be friends, and I continue to consult with him from time to time. But just about everything I did for that first 7 years when he was my mentor, I called him constantly. He gave me his phone number, and I'm like, okay, Bill, now I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And sometimes just having that sort of compassionate ear, and most importantly, a compassionate ear, and sometimes he wasn't so compassionate. Sometimes he kicked me in the butt. But having somebody who's been where you want to go, and to be able to say, now, Bill's not a real estate guy. He's never been a real estate guy. He has no desire to be a real estate guy. In fact, I helped him buy his first 2 office buildings because I'm like, why are you throwing away all that money in rent? Just buy the darn building, right? And he bought one, and then his company grew so fast, so large, he had to buy a second. And then when he sold the company, he kept the buildings because he's like, that's a whole lot more fun being a landlord than being a business operator, right? But that's a mentoring relationship. From time to time, I'd say, Bill, how do you do X, Y, and Z? He goes, well, there's a guy I know who's really good at that. Let me connect you with him. Or there's a woman I know, what was her name? Nida. She's really, really good at that. Let me connect you with her. And so these individuals would show me how to do a specific task over a specific short period of time, a month, 2 months, whatever. I consider those folks to be coaches. And so a coach, in my opinion, is somebody who shows you how to do a specific task in a specific duration, whereas a mentor is somebody who's kind of with you for a lengthy part of your life. So as an example, because y'all know I love to use aviation and I love to use sports. We got any Ravens fans in here that are loving the Ravens? You're like, not right now. All right. So you guys can tell just by the way they play together, right? Harbaugh and Lamar have a special relationship. And to a large degree, Harbaugh is not just the head coach. He's like mentoring this young man on how to make it in the NFL. You see it, and you see the growth, right? And you see the care and the compassion. And even when they talk about each other, you can tell there's a mentoring thing going on. Not to say that he's his only mentor, but there's clearly a mentoring thing going on. And yet, the Ravens have a professional quarterbacks coach who works with Lamar every day to help him in his passing, right? So the coach helps him on specific strategy, specific technique, whereas the mentor is looking at the bigger picture. To me, that's the difference. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes. So here's the deal. If you are going to be out there and you're brand new to real estate, and this is really sort of your first time out the gate, having a mentor who's done the kinds of things you want to do is a really smart thing. And if you are looking to master a certain strategy, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll keep on saying it. To me, mastering a specific strategy means that you've done it 3 to 4 times. First time you did it, you probably had somebody, that you were looking over their shoulder, or they were intently looking over your shoulder and kind of holding your hands. It's like flying a plane. The first time you fly a plane, it's in a simulator, but the first time you fly a plane, there is most definitely an experienced co-pilot instructor right there with you, because nobody wants you to screw up on your first maiden flight. The second time you fly the plane, they're also in there with you, but they're way more hands off. The third time you fly the plane, they're in there and they're doing nothing. And even if you do something stupid, they're still doing nothing. And then the fourth time you fly the plane, you are on your own. Why you're on your own? Because they figure after all the hours you spent in the simulator and the 3 times they went up with you together, you got this. And to get your pilot's license, you have to have that 4th time, because you're demonstrating for this aircraft, for this licensing exercise, I have mastered basic technique. Now, you ain't jumping in a 737, you know, you ain't jumping in nobody's jumbo jet, but on a Piper Cub, the 4th time up, you're on your own and you're demonstrating you know what you're doing. Got it? Same is true in real estate. First time you do a deal, you're probably thinking, great, I got a deal, made some money. I'm not really sure what I did. Second time you do a deal, you're like, hey, made some more money. And I kind of think I know what I did. Well, third time you do, like, I think I got this. Fourth time, you're like, Sherman, just chill. I got it. We're good. Just sit there and watch me do this. That's where you want to be, right? So a coach may be with you for a much shorter duration because they're just trying to get you from first deal to second or third deal. And it's like, okay, you got it. You don't need me anymore, right? I oftentimes liken it to like doing the rehabbing class. Some of y'all want Stephanie to show you how to rehab some houses so you can make some money. And after you've done it 2 or 3 times, you're like, I got it. And yet some folks still want to hang out with Stephanie because they view Stephanie as their mentor. She can be both. In the short run, she can be your coach because all you want to do is learn how to rehab. But after a while, you establish a relationship. Like, you know what? I like your philosophies. I like what you're saying. I want to hang out with you. Will you be my mentor? Sometimes they can be both, right? But generally speaking, generically speaking, a mentor is there for a much longer run. A coach is to help you do something specific. In the world of real investors, if you decide that you would like to engage us to help you implement your 21-day strategy, notice there's a whole lot of ifs, because you don't have to use us. If you got somebody who can help you get this thing done, and they're not necessarily affiliated with real investors, and they're not going to screw it up, and it's more convenient, it's better. You know, maybe you're coming here and you're from Atlanta. I'm not licensed in Georgia. I can't help you as an agent in Georgia, but I can be your mentor, even if you're out of state. In the world of real investors, when we're implementing this phase 1, going to hack the matrix, I'm going to assign you a coach. That coach will be a licensed real estate agent who knows how this game gets played, who brings value to your team. Which agent I assign is based on a conversation we have, or if you already have some preconceived, I want to work with this person. Y'all heard the case study the other day where the young lady said, I knew coming into this, I want to work with Jonathan. He was Investor of the Year. I'd heard some good things. I told Sherman, I'll sign that paper, but I want to work with him. Okay. No argument. You don't have to break my arm, right? Now, of course, Jonathan went on to buy all the Nexus franchises. He ain't here no more. And I, quite frankly, I talked to Jonathan. I saw Jonathan a few months ago, but I don't really know how he's running his real estate shop. I don't think they're doing a lot of investing, but I could be wrong. But as I said the other day, most brokers run their real estate shops, especially if they're franchises, based on their franchise agreement. And most franchise agreements for real estate brokerage firms don't really allow you to do a whole lot of investing. But rather than me talking about what somebody else is or is not doing, let me tell you what we're doing. We have very qualified licensed real estate agents who are licensed in Maryland, DC, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And if necessary, if you decide you want to go do some deal making at Harper's Ferry, we can figure out how to make it work in West Virginia. I can get reciprocity as a broker. I can get reciprocity in Delaware if you want to go do some beach houses, right? But for the most part, if you're doing investing, it's probably going to be limited to Maryland, DC, or Virginia, or possibly Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We can cover you. And I'm here to act as your mentor if you want me to. But I'm probably going to bring on a coach. And it's that coach who's going to work with you specifically on getting offers out the door and getting them done a certain way. So as an example, tomorrow when we go through the contract, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to fill out that contract. And you will know more than 99.9% of the real estate agents out there about how to fill out a contract that will allow you to wholesale the contract, even though the contract says it can't be assigned without getting written permission from the other side. And you will not have to get written permission from anybody, because I'm going to show you a very specific technique that is 100% legal, ethical, and does not violate the terms and conditions of the contract, that still allows you to wholesale the contract. How could that possibly be? Y'all already know the answer. What are you going to do to yourself starting tomorrow that will allow you to wholesale a contract without having to go get permission? What are you going to do to yourself? Put it in the chat box. What are you going to do? Clone. Thank you, Joe. Joe was the first one with the right. You're going to clone yourself. You're going to clone your. How do we do that? Isn't that unethical? Isn't it immoral? Isn't it against the law to clone a human? We are not cloning a human. We are creating an entity that in the eyes of the state where you're doing business, it's its own thing. And you are not acting as the buyer of the real estate. You are acting as an officer or managing member or member of that entity. And it's the entity that's being sold, not the contract. If you create an entity, an LLC, and you are the managing member / sole owner of LLC, can't you sell what you created and get paid? Some of y'all need a couple more days to let that marinate. Go back. If what I just said is still a mystery to you, please go back and listen to yesterday's lesson, The Water Boy. I guarantee if you go back and listen to The Water Boy, it will no longer be, you're like, I'm on it. I get it. And if you do that, tomorrow's lesson on how to fill out the contract is going to be a piece of cherry pie. Like, I don't like cherry pie, blueberry pie, apple pie, cake. It'll be a piece of cake. German sweet chocolate with the walnuts and the whipped cream on top. I think they call that Gregory's favorite at the Cheesecake Factory. All right. It'll be a piece of cake, right? And if you still get stuck after we go through the contract tomorrow with me showing you how to fill it out a specific way, then tomorrow after we get done, go back and listen to the, somehow, some way, get it on your calendar, do your time blocking, move around what you got to move around, but go listen to The Water Boy, because once you listen to it once, maybe twice, thank you, Alfonso, all of a sudden you're like, I get it. This is how we hack the matrix. Can I get a thumbs up if you're with me, you know what I'm talking about? Cool, thank you. All right, so I'm more than happy to serve as your mentor. I'm the guy that created the 21-day course, and I don't care whether you're in Maryland, DC, Virginia, or you're in Atlanta or Texas. I got sisters in Chicago, north of Chicago, and I got sisters down in the Dallas area, a sister down in the Dallas area. I have taught both of them how to do what I'm teaching you guys. Now, I am their mentor, but I'm not their coach, because the coach is the person who's actively helping you hack the matrix, which means it's a real estate agent. And what I'm going to teach you tomorrow is a specific way to fill out a contract. And the first time you meet with the coach, your coach, especially if they're a real investor agent, they may very well say to you, okay, I know Sherman taught you how to do this way, but I have a couple little tweaks, a couple little techniques, a couple of things that I want to change because I think it'll help you do better. Who do you listen to? Faced with that situation, who do you listen to? Put it in the chat box. Are you out of your mind? They're putting Alfonso, they're putting coach in there. We know that's not the right answer. And somebody said, Sherman, we know that's not the right answer. What's the right answer? You listen to both. You listen to both. If I hand you over to a coach, then the coach says, hey, listen, I know Sherman said that he likes to see you handwrite out the offer, but I have a piece of software that simulates handwritten. And wouldn't it be a whole lot better to use this piece of software? I want you to come back to me and say, hey, listen, I was working with so-and-so and they want me. And I'm like, yes. And I want you to use a piece of software too, after you've gotten your first 5 offers out the door or your first 10 offers out, because I want you to read the contract. And if you're sitting there filling out the contract by hand, guess what else you're doing? Reading it. And some people, it's like, I get it after the first one. That's very, very few. It's like, you're a lawyer, you read contracts for a living. Most people need to read that contract or peruse the contract or look at the various parts of the contract 3 or 4 or 5 times. Do I want you to handwrite contracts for the rest of your life? No. Do I want you to do I want you to handwrite out 100 contracts? I used to say that, but I'm no longer of that opinion. No. But handwriting contracts for a day or two is going to help you. It's kind of like the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi. Wax on, wax off. Well, how long do I got to wax on and wax off? Until it becomes fluid. So I'm right, and your coach is right. The difference is, I want you to do it for some duration, but once you get it, absolutely use the handwriting software. It only makes sense. And then once you get it, turn it over to your, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Don't, Sherman, stop it. Don't get ahead. I'm trying to teach you week 3 stuff in week 2, and that only becomes a problem. So the correct answer is, if I'm your mentor and you got a coach, let us work together if we say something that's in conflict. Chances are all you need is some clarification. Seriously. Now, on the other hand, if you wind up using a non-real investors agent and a person says, you want me to do what? For what? For how? Oh no, I ain't gonna do that. Then you better come back to me and go, okay, here's how the conversation went. Got it? The number one reason why most new investors get in trouble when they go out to hire a real estate agent is they want the real estate agent to do everything. You not only don't want the real estate agent to do everything, you don't need the real estate agent to do everything. Understanding what you really want from that person and setting up a situation, a scenario where you're working together in some kind of a partnership fashion so that you take care of the things that need to get done so they can do their job is much better than walking in the door and going, okay, I took this course on real estate investing and the guy said to hack the MLS and I wasn't really paying attention and I didn't really go through all 21 days carefully, but he said, go get a real estate agent. So you're my real estate agent. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to write up as my real estate agent 5 to 6 offers a day. I have no money, so you're going to have to provide me with my proof of funds. And when we get a deal, we're going to go to the settlement table and you're probably going to make 3,000 and I'm going to make 5. Are you okay with that? And that agent's like, get the heck, what planet did you just beam in from? And the way we wind up being successful in this business and hacking the matrix successfully is by having a clear understanding of what needs to get done, having a clear understanding as to who should be getting it done, and have a clear understanding that at the end of the day, my friend, this is your business. And if it is to be your business, if it's to be, it's up to me, right? You got to make sure that stuff's getting done, even when somebody's calling in sick. You got to make sure that stuff's getting done, even when you can't afford to hire an assistant who can help you automate. You still got to get stuff done. And at the end of the day, the number one thing, write this down. The number one thing we want our real estate agents, our coaches to do for us is the one thing we can't do when we hack the matrix. You know what that is? To talk directly to the seller, talk directly to the seller's agent. We can't do that. We need somebody to negotiate the deal for us. And we need somebody to kind of be our coach and guide when we're totally new to the game. Now, as time goes on, you may wind up being your lead negotiator. Like there's many a professional sports franchise where the coach is a coach player. It's not common, but it does happen. You can wear multiple hats. I mean, you are the team owner. This is your team. You got to make sure this stuff's getting done. I strongly suggest you have a mentor, and I strongly suggest you have a coach, especially if you're going into a new area. That real estate agent, the number one job, the number one thing that they need to do for us is to communicate with the seller through the seller's agent, because you can't do that. I see somebody popped in there that we want the agent to negotiate. We don't necessarily want the agent to negotiate. I'll be very honest with you. My first couple of deals, I was a much better negotiator than my agent was, much better. But I still wanted them in place to talk to the seller, talk to the seller's agent. There was one particular deal where my agent called me and she's about ready to both strangle me and ask me for a hug and a tissue because she was almost in tears. And she had just gotten off the phone with another agent that was involved in doing bank REOs, what they call a bank REO specialist, Faith. I love me some Faith. And Faith tore her up one side and down the other. And the reason why she tore my agent up one side down the other was, who are you working with that's putting in all these low ball offers? And my agent called me up and says, look, Sherman, I don't know if I can keep on working with you because every time I come into the office, there's another phone message from another agent want to beat me up about your low ball offers. And I said, well, tell me exactly what Faith said. And she told me. I said, okay, I want you to do one thing. She's like, I don't know if I want to do anything else for you. Yeah, fair and honest. I like fair and honest conversations. I said, I need you to do one thing. If you just do this one thing, I promise you, if you want to fire me as your client, you can fire me as your client. She said, what's the one thing? I said, I want you to call Faith back. She said, I ain't calling that woman back. I am not calling her back. I'm like, just trust me on this. I said, call her back and ask her one question. She's like, what is it? I said, call her back and ask her, if your client won't accept X, what will they take? Can you do that for me? She says, I'll try. She hung up the phone. I hung up the phone. 2 minutes later, Sherman, I don't know how you do it. What? She says they will take $24,000. Now understand, the property was listed for 50, like 47 and change. I offered 12. Sight unseen. She says they'll take 24. How do you buy house? By the way, I ultimately sold that house for $100 and some thousand, 120. It was a 2-bedroom bungalow in Capitol Heights, Maryland. 5301 or 5103. I can't remember. I'm getting old now. It's been 20 years, excuse me. 5103, I think, Pacific Avenue. And I bought that house that was originally listed for 87. They dropped the price to 47 and I bought it for 24. How do you buy houses for 50 cents on the dollar, 25 cents on the dollar? You offer less. You offer less and come up. You don't offer more and then try to go down, okay? Offering more and trying to go down will generally backfire on you. And so what she said was she would talk to, and so she, by the way, she already knew, because this was a bank REO and it was bank-owned property, she already knew what they were willing to take. Most REO agents know that number. They just know it, okay? Just trust me on that. But nobody was gonna tell me directly what that number is. If I were to try to call Faith directly, she would have said, I don't talk to buyers, go get yourself an agent. Because one of the rules of being a bank REO agent, you're not allowed to talk to buyers. The banks don't want any conflict of interest whatsoever. They want to know that if you're representing them, you're only representing them. So in that particular example, I didn't need, quote unquote, my agent to negotiate for me. I just needed her to make some phone calls and be my intermediary, my consigliere. And I was telling her what I needed her to do. I just needed somebody to be in that position, because when we are dealing with matrix properties, MLS properties, you, the buyer, cannot and should not be talking to the seller's agent. And it is very, 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 very rare that you're ever actually going to be able to get in touch with the seller. If you get in touch with the seller, it's almost always because you already had a prior relationship and the seller goes, well, I've decided to listen with an agent, go talk to my agent. Well, you still should not be talking to the agent, even if you know the seller, okay? Because one slip of the tongue, something you didn't mean to say, is going to go right back to the seller. You should always have. So the first thing you want that agent to do is represent you. Well, gosh, if we're going to hack the matrix, we're going to go after MLS deals. That means we need somebody who's licensed. Now, the second thing, and this is where the negotiating comes in, maybe you're not confident in your negotiating skills. And so maybe one of the other tasks you would like to have your agent, your coach take on is actually negotiating the deal. Nothing wrong with that, okay? So the whole idea is to go through this roster and ask yourself the question, what do I need? Why do I need them? And who should they be? And it's quite possible that some of these positions may have the same name. And whoever's just unmuted your microphone, put it back on mute, or I'm just going to stop and we're all going to sit around and listen to you yell at your kids. Whoever just unmuted your microphone, please put mute back on. Thank you. All right. So as we go through this checklist, first thing we're going to identify is, hey, there's some team members we need that we just don't have. And quite frankly, for some of it, we don't know where to go find them. So we need to have that conversation. Like, where to go find them, right? But secondly, we need to ask the question, well, why do I need that person? What are they doing? Why do I need them? And who are they? Or said another way, who's going to help me go find them? Does that make sense? All right. So first up, mentor coach. You got me as a mentor. I'll be more than happy to be your mentor as long as you want me to be a mentor. If you come to me and say, hey, I want to use Real Investors, I'm going to assign a coach to work with you. That coach is going to have experience doing what we're talking about. And that coach may wind up advising you to do things a little differently, especially when it comes to the contract, right? And you need to listen to them. So as an example, you decide to go after FHA deals or Fannie Mae deals. They're going to say to you, listen, you can't just fax over or email over a contract. We have to upload it into the Fannie Mae database. Well, you should still write out the offer. You should still write out the contract and then give that over to your agent, in my opinion, to have, so they have something, or their assistant has something, or your assistant has something to upload it into the database, okay? So the coach may decide to tell you, okay, Sherman told you XYZ, he was 99.9% correct. Here's the like 1/10 of 1% we're gonna make a little tweak on. Listen to both of us. And don't be afraid to come back to me and say, hey, my coach is telling me to do something different than you said. I'm gonna ask you, okay, what do they tell you to do? Okay, yeah, that actually makes sense. Do it their way. Or, you know what, I hear what they're saying, but I still would feel more comfortable if you did it this way for a couple of things, or a couple more weeks, or a couple more days, or a couple more hours, and then switch over to what they're saying, okay? But listen to both of us, all right? Next, we're gonna need a negotiator. And by the way, if you decide that you want me to be your mentor and you're operating in an area that Real Investors doesn't have agents, doesn't have buyer's agents, still use me for your mentor, but let me help you pick your coach. Let's have a conversation about who you're thinking about using and why, and making sure you're picking the right person for the right reasons, okay? Next, we're gonna need a negotiator. Now, again, if you have negotiating skills, if your day job involves negotiating, maybe you want a real estate agent, a coach who's not necessarily negotiating, because you're going to sort of direct them as to how and what you want to see done. Understand that that means a lot more involvement on your part, because they may very well be calling you back, maybe very well calling you back in tears going, okay, what do I do now? Because this person asked me to do something that I'm not prepared to do. Well, if you got some experience under your belt, or for whatever reason you want to throw a bone to your cousin who just got their license and they don't really know what they're doing, but you feel some sense of obligation, you're the negotiator, even though they're the quote unquote real estate agent coach. I've also seen this, which works very, very well. My mentor, the guy who initially taught me this little trick, this little technique on how to hack the matrix, he never got his real estate license. Steve Cook never got his real estate license. Steve decided to have his mother get her license, and he found that it was better, family situation, that his mother needed a little bit of money, and you know what, mom's got a little pride. Rather than giving mom money, why not just go ahead and help mom get a real estate license, and then every time she closes a deal, he pays her a commission, and she's happy and he's happy. Why not? If you got grown kids and they're like not sort of totally performing up to the abilities that you know that they're possibly able to perform, and you don't think they're going to screw it up too badly, set them up and let them go get their real estate license. And then they can represent you, and you tell them what they need to do. And as long as they're doing what you need them to do, and they're not messing it up too badly, why not? It's a great way for them to earn some money, earn some respect, and you're still kind of in control. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? But you are going to need a negotiator on your team. And if you're good and strong at that, do it. And if you're not real comfortable with it, then that may be the number one trait you're looking for from your agent. I need somebody who's a strong negotiator. Yeah, but I don't like him. He says mean things and hurts my feelings. Okay, get over it. What do you want more? A strong negotiator or your feelings intact? I need both. Okay, then beef up your negotiating skills, and while you're doing it, suck it up, buttercup, and let him or let her do their job, okay? Not everybody you meet in this business is gonna be your friend. You need a friend, go get a dog, go hang a pork chop around your neck, okay? Man, Sherman's mean tonight. I'm just saying, all right? Next, if we're gonna hack the matrix, we need proof of funds. That's one of the requirements. We're gonna get more in detail in that tomorrow when we go through the contract, but that's one of the requirements. There are 3 ways to come up with proof of funds. Number 1, if you've got a pot of cash, maybe you got a pot of cash in your bank account, maybe you got a pot of cash in your retirement account. Proof of funds means you're proving you have the funds. It does not mean those are the funds you are going to use to close the deal. If you are out there wholesaling and you know, I'm not going to put any money up because I'm wholesaling, I got my one weasel clause, if the whole thing falls apart, I'm exercising my weasel clause. But if I'm going to be making offers on $300,000 properties and you got $300,000 in a retirement account, snap a photo of your retirement account. Redact, y'all know what I mean when I say redact? Get a black magic marker and thoroughly wipe out your account numbers or scratch out your account numbers and include that in your offer letter. And your proof of funds is, I got $300,000 cash and I'm making $200,000, $285,000 offer on the property. I got proof of funds. That works. That works. Unfortunately, most of us don't have that. Some do, most don't, right? I know I didn't when I first got started. So next place you can go to your friendly neighborhood bank. You can go to Bank of America. You can go to your credit union. And if they will give you an unencumbered proof of funds letter, and you got a good relationship, use it. But if they start giving you all of this, well, we need the address of the property. We can't just be giving you a letter without you actually identifying. We need to see the sign. Are they giving you any of that nonsense? That ain't gonna work. That dog don't hunt. It ain't gonna be helpful to you. Drop them like a lead egg and move on, okay? But if you have that kind of relationship, forget it. Somebody was saying that some retirement accounts will auto-generate a proof of funds. Absolutely. Most folks who've got any kind of retirement account, it's typically in some kind of a stock market or whatever. And one of the beautiful things about the reason why you chose to put your money with fill in the blank, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, whatever, is that they got reports that you can generate with a push of a button. If you got money in a retirement account or savings account and it's the amount of money you need, use it. Use the proof. Don't use the money. I'm not telling you to run out and buy a bunch of houses and then hope and pray you can sell them so you can put the money back in your account. Don't do that, right? And then the third way we generate a proof of funds letter is we go to a hard money lender. So one of the members of the team needs to be some kind of a hard money lender who will provide us with a proof of funds letter. As I said before, and I'll put it in the chat box, if you go to http://www.realinvestorloans.com, boom, you can get a proof of funds letter from that website. We have an existing relationship with a lender, Adonis Lockett & Homes, and he will provide you with a proof of funds letter if you fill out a short, I think it's an 8-question survey, including how much money do you need. And by the way, don't ask for much more than you really need. If you know that you're going to be making offers on houses in a certain neighborhood that have a certain price point, and therefore your probably top end number, let's say, is $350,000, don't get a proof of funds letter that says $500,000. Because when you submit your offer with your proof of funds letter, and you've already quote unquote lowballed the number, they're going to be, what's this person talking about only offering $250? Their proof of funds letter says they're good for $500,000. Why are they only offering $250? Oh. So if your proof of funds letter says $325 and you offer $250, why is this? Because they're going to have to spend $75,000 to fix it up. Oh, that makes sense. You're offering $250. Your proof of funds letter says $5. You're going to spend $250,000 fix. You're going to like totally demolish the property, build it up. Yeah. No, you're not. So make sure your proof of funds letter is not too high, because that works against you when it comes to your person negotiating. Okay. Can you get multiple proof of funds letters? You can, but you don't really need them. Typically, a proof of funds letter can be used for multiple offers, because at the end of the day, you're not actually pulling a loan. So if you go to your credit union, you go to Bank of America, they say, okay, well, here's a lender letter for that property. And then every address that you want to give them to off, like I now got to get another lender letter. That just becomes way too cumbersome. That doesn't work. With a proof of funds letter, you're getting a lender letter from a hard money lender who says, I pre-qualified you for up to $350,000. And it's going to have a date on it. Generally speaking, that letter is probably good for a month to two. Every once in a while, you'll have somebody go, you know, your proof of funds letter is 6 months old. But most, quite frankly, most folks don't read it carefully enough or closely enough that it's a big deal. Truthfully, technically, the proof of funds letter is not supposed to go beyond your agent. Technically, truthfully, your agent is supposed to verify that you have proof of funds. However, because so many deals got blown up at the last minute, more and more listing agents are asking for your proof of funds. Technically, they're not supposed to see it, but who cares? Well, let's not get into the technicality. What's supposed to happen is they're supposed to get on the phone with the agent and go, have you seen this person's proof of funds? And the agent to agent is supposed to say, yes, I've seen it. And it's enough. Why have an argument you don't need to have? It's kind of like Facebook, you know, do I really want to push, you know, post, or maybe I'm just better off leaving this dog alone, right? So just go ahead and get a proof of funds letter, use realinvestorloans.com, get a proof of funds letter, attach it to your offer, and off you go. So bottom line is we're talking about team, who needs to be on a team. We're not talking about writing offers. That's tomorrow's lesson. But you do need to have proof of funds when you are hacking the matrix. The two things go together. If you're doing FSBO deals outside the matrix, all you need to do is give the person a buck. You don't need a proof of funds letter when you're going outside the matrix. You don't. But when you're in the matrix, because that's the way real estate agents do business, we're not going to try to get real estate agents to do business a different way. We're hacking the matrix, but we're not going to redo the matrix. We're not going to reorganize or reorient. So we are going to need to come to the table with a proof of funds. Okay. So 350,000 is a good maximum for your proof of funds letter. No. We will talk tomorrow about what neighborhoods we're going to target and why. But if you decided you want to target neighborhoods in Northern Virginia, Falls Church, well, the average price of a house in Falls Church now is $1 million. Walking in the door with a $350,000 proof of funds letter gets you absolutely nowhere. On the other hand, if we're going to target Capitol Heights, Seat Pleasant, Lanham Seabrook, Upper Marlboro 20774, and average home values are $350 to $357, then we probably ought to have a proof of funds letter that's about $350 to $357. And that probably will save the day. If you decide to go into Bowie Mitchellville, Prince George's County, 20721, average home values are now $500,000. A $350,000 proof of funds letter is not going to help you. It's going to hurt you. So proof of funds dollar amount is really tied to what neighborhoods we're going to be targeting. And I'm going to talk tomorrow when we talk about contracts, specifically about targeting neighborhoods. And the day after tomorrow, I'll talk even more because I'm going to share with you some video on what constitutes a neighborhood, what doesn't constitute a neighborhood, why 80% of all housing values are based in the neighborhood, and how once you kind of know the neighborhood, having spent a couple of days there, you got that sucker down and you can go on to the next neighborhood. That's the lesson for the day after tomorrow, okay? But no, having a proof of funds letter that's arbitrarily set at one number may not do you any good if the neighborhoods you target have higher values. In fact, it will only hurt you, okay? We've already talked about banks giving you proof of funds letter. Most banks, when they give you a proof of funds letter, it's based on the address of the property. So most traditional banks don't help you. If you have a line of credit with the bank, just take a picture of the line of credit. That's your proof of funds. If you've got $1 million line of credit, right, and nothing's outstanding, take a snapshot of the thing that says $1 million. Now, again, don't forget what I just said a few minutes ago about having too high a proof of funds amount. You got $600,000 in a retirement account. You got $600,000 in a line of credit because you had $1 million. You tap some of it. Walking around showing you got $600,000 when you're making offers for $275 hurts you, doesn't help you. Because if you got a seller's agent that's like me, they're like, why are you only offering X when you're showing proof of funds wise, you got so much more money? It hurts you. So the best way to do proof of funds, in my opinion, is just do what Sherman said. Realinvestorloans.com and go get yourself a proof of funds letter from a hard money lender. Well, I'm not there yet, so I'm not going to scroll my screen until I'm there, right? Oh, I am there. Thank you. All right. So bottom line, thank you. So bottom line is we need a proof of funds. If we're going to hack the matrix, we need some kind of a proof of funds. Next, we need a contractor. Sherman, why do we need a contractor if I'm not actually rehabbing the house? You need a contractor to give you a cost estimate. And the contractors you want are not the ones you find on Angie's List. They are way too expensive. I used to say Yellow Pages. Well, the new Yellow Pages is Angie's List. I guarantee you that a contractor who comes in to provide me with a cost estimate to rehab a house in Lanham Seabrook, Maryland, that the house is 50 years old and it needs new bathroom and new kitchen, that my contractor is going to tell me is $50,000. The Angie's List contractor is going to say it's 90. And if you have a $90,000 cost estimate, that will totally blow up your offer and will totally blow up your deal. So you need to have the kind of contractors that work with folks like me or Jesse or Kevin or Martinez or Stephanie. But I'm going to tell you, Stephanie's contractor is a little pricey, right? Stephanie has educated that guy over the years. They've been working so long that when Stephanie buys a house, he just does his thing. He charges a premium. But Stephanie really doesn't have to manage the guy. I've had a couple of deals where I've said, Stephanie, can we have, your guy, I'm not going to mention his name, can I have your guy come? And I'm like, whoa, Jack, I got another contract says it's like, right? And so she's like, yeah, but if you hire him, you don't have to watch, you have to worry about him, you have to watch him. Okay, but do I really want to pay that premium? So, but having said that, you guys saw the case study the other day that Claire talked about, her rehab on Rollins, where he did that job. And the value add was every contractor she had talked to said, I don't know what to do with that spiral staircase. Santos came in and said, oh yeah, we take that out and we're going to reorient it this way. And then Santos brought a architect to the table because in Prince George's County, you can't pull permits doing that kind of work without having an architect submit architectural drawings. His architect was $1,000. Everybody else's architect wanted to charge 10 grand. I mean, this is what you call a rehabber's contractor. He knows the drill. He knows the game. He knows how to get it done for rehabbers. Now, you don't necessarily need that, but you do need to have a contractor. Again, we're talking today about hacking the matrix. Tomorrow we'll be talking about writing the contract. But as it relates to hacking the matrix, as I said yesterday, if there's a deal that's in the MLS, you cannot go inside that house by yourself. You're trespassing. Well, I got a friend who's a real estate agent. They let me borrow their Centra key. Yeah, and they're going to lose the Centra key, and you might wind up going to jail for the night. You're trespassing. You can't go there. Now, here's the little hack, because we're hacking the matrix. You got to go in there as the guest of somebody. You can go in there as the guest of your agent, your coach, your negotiator, or you can go in there as the guest of the contractor. Bam! What? You can go in there as the guest of the contractor. Because in the world of the matrix, in the world of the MLS, it's understood that real estate agents can enter a property. Otherwise, how could they enter the property without showing their clients around? But the board of realtors doesn't want real estate agents saying to their clients, here's my Centra key. Centra key is the electronic key that opens up the electronic lock boxes, right? And it tells the person who owns the lockbox who opened it, when they opened it, how long it was open, how long they was there. This is a tool. These electronic lock boxes are a tool so that the listing agent knows exactly who's in the house at all times. If your agent gives you their Centra lock key card, which they will not do, they won't do it. The agent gets an alert on their phone. They call the other agent. Your agent says, well, I see you're in the house. What does it look like? And the second that person goes, I'm not in the house. Well, your key card is. They in trouble. You in trouble. Now, here's what the agent can do. If you have submitted an offer and the other side is seriously considering your offer, and I'm going to show you how to write these offers tomorrow so that the only thing that they're concerned about is, in fact, the price. So they're going to love your offer except for the price. Then they're going to call your agent back and say, hey, can your client offer a highest and best? I like to call it best and final because that's government contractor lingo, and that's the world I come out of. But in the world of real estate, they call it highest and best. And your agent, your coach, your negotiator will be trained to say, well, tell you what, can you give me 48 hours? Because if you can give me 48 hours, I'm pretty sure my client will come up with a higher number, but they just want to go see it again. And if the answer comes back, yeah, you got 48 hours, what do? You get the phone call from your agent, say, hey, got good news. One of your offers is highest and best. You got 40 hours to get out there. What do? You call a contractor and say, I need for you to go take a look at a house with me. And you give the name and contact information of that contractor, and they don't have to be certified. They don't have to be licensed. Nobody needs to do any searches. You're bringing the contractor. You're not asking the agent to be a contractor. And you say, I got a contractor who's willing to go out with me. His name is such and such. His phone number is such and such. And that agent can create a temporary code and text it to your contractor. And the contractor can open the lockbox. The contractor can take out the key, and you are there as a guest of the contractor. No harm, no foul. We're in line with what the matrix, those are the matrix rules. Baby, we're hacking the matrix. Got it? You can't go in there by yourself, but your contractor can. And you can go in there as a guest of the contractor. So wait a minute, why don't I just make it so that my agent is the one who's opening up the lock boxes and show me? So you're telling me you want your agent, one of the tasks, one of the things you want them to do is meet you at properties and open up doors so you can do what? Go inside with your contractor? Because your agent, sure enough, doesn't know what it costs to rehab. Unless your agent is Stephanie Terry, they don't know like the back of their hand what it's like. The agent gonna tell you what it costs to rehab, or the contractor's gonna tell you what it costs to rehab. You know the answer to that. And as good as I am, as good as Jesse is, as good as Kevin and Martinez and all the other folks at Real Investors are, they are still not going to be as good as the contractor, unless their name is Stephanie Terry. Then it's like, okay, she's gonna run circles around the contractor. But Stephanie's not gonna do this for you. She's not. So when it comes time for you to get those offers out the door, and a certain percentage wind up being, hey, highest and best, here's the phone call, you need to swing into action with your contractor, because your contractor can go on the property and you can't unless you're with the contractor. Did anybody just have an aha moment? Give me a thumbs up if you had an aha moment. All right. So one of the things that we need is not just any old contractor, but a contractor who can basically on demand meet us at a property. So when we get that phone call from our agent, it's like, okay, we got 48 hours. I need for you to meet me. Well, I can't do it today, but I can do it tomorrow. Great. Let's go do this. Now, if you don't have that kind of relation with a contractor now, we can provide you with names of contractors. And I've oftentimes have people say, well, Sherman, where do I go to download the name of the contractors? Let me tell you something. My number one A1 contractor ain't giving you his name. I'm not. Not in some training program, and I have no idea what you're gonna do to my contractor is gonna make him hate me. You VIP coaching member, we're in a VIP level relationship, and you're like, I really need a contractor. Sherman, can you please put me in touch with Christian? Yeah, but I'm not gonna put you in touch with Christian. I'm gonna call Christian myself and say, hey, I need for you to do me a favor. I need you to go out for this property and go take a look at it with Alfonso, right? But Alfonso, don't ask me for Christian's phone. I mean, I'll give it to you. Not gonna happen. Now, do I know other contractors? Yes, I know other contractors by word of mouth. I know other contractors by way of Real Investors. We got members of Real Investors, but let me tell you something. The reason why I don't give out Christian's info is because I've used other contractors, and with the exception of Christian, most contractors eventually go bad. And the reason why we don't have them on a website that you can download is we want to have a little conversation and go, that guy was pretty good until he ripped me off to the tune of $15,000. Now, if you want to know the name, excuse me, 12,000. If you want to know the name of the guy who ripped me off to the tune of 12,000, I'll be more than happy to tell you privately who he is and exactly how he did it. And oh, by the way, yes, at one time he was a member of Real Investors. And yes, oh, by the way, he not only got me, got a couple other people. So when people are like, do you know what so? Yeah, stand in line. He was good until he was bad. And as a bear likes to say, there's a reason why they call them contractors. That business has got such a reputation, well earned, that you don't want me giving you some list that's a year old only to find out, well, 2 or 3 of these guys, let's have a private conversation. Best way to find a contractor if you don't have one is word of mouth from somebody who's in the business. If you're coming from out of state, that's a really good reason to join a local real estate investor club or meetup group that's active, where you can get those kinds of referrals, those kinds of names. Another way to find contractors, you'll love this. Some of y'all about to have an aha moment. Put some offers out in the street, especially on properties that need to be rehabbed, and lose. Sherman, lose? I don't play to lose. Oh, I don't play to lose either. But as the saying goes, either I win or I learned. I learned this one from Howard Johnson, Mr. Incredible Investor of the Year. Howard, every time he made an offer where he was highest and best, and he submitted a highest and best, and he still didn't win, he would always go back out a day, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks later to see why he lost. And that became his #1 tool for finding contractors. Because guess who's at a property a week after the deal closes if you lost the opportunity to buy the property and it needs rehab? The contractor. And he picked up many a contractor by following up on deals where he got beat up, outbid. And he'd go in and he'd talk to the contractor, and the contractor would explain the kinds of things that he was going to do that the contractor that Howard used totally missed, totally botched, totally overpriced. And so pretty soon, the contractors who were winning deals became Howard's contractors. Like, who likes that idea? Was it worth coming out tonight just for that one little nugget? Put the offers out. Don't be afraid to get the snot beat out of you. They're like, Sherman, did you really say snot beat out of you? Yes, the image of that is grotesque, but I said it. And you put out 25 offers in a week, get none, and then follow up to find out who actually bought the property and go out there the day or two after closing. Because most investors, when they close, they expect that contractor to be out there in a day or two right after they close. And go talk. Like, you want to talk about being inside a house that's totally open. Once it closes and the investor bought it and the contractor's going to work, there's no prohibition against you walking in the house. I've walked into houses where the contractor's in the middle of doing work. Hey man, what's going on here? Now announce yourself. Don't be a fool. Don't be sneaking in, have your hands in your pockets and somebody goes pop, 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 right? It's like, oh, I don't know what the guy wanted, right? Hey, I go into a house, my hands are way up. Where? Hey, I'm making lots of noise. Hey, like, I'm not sneaking up on anybody and have somebody turn around and draw on me. Ooh, hey, what are you doing in here? What's going on? How's it going? Oh, I made an offer and I didn't win. Like, tell me what you guys are doing. You know what the thing about contractors? Unless, of course, they don't speak English and you don't speak Spanish. Like, Sherman, isn't that racist? Well, the vast majority of contractors are Spanish speaking. I've not come across any Chinese speaking contractors in Maryland. All right. So if I'm giving a generalization, it's because of what I see. If you speak Spanish, you're way ahead of the game. My son keeps on saying, why do I need to take Spanish 3? Because you're going to be in the real estate business. It's really funny. Sometimes I'm on the phone with Stephanie and she's on a job site and she's talking to the contract and she just effortlessly flows right on into her Spanish. And I think Stephanie would be the first one to tell you her Spanish ain't great. Well, you know what? It's good enough to get the job done. But she knows there's contractors coming on the job and they just don't speak English. They're subcontractors. So you get in there and you start asking questions. The only reason why the contractor is not going to answer you is because A, their English ain't so good, right? Or B, your Spanish ain't so good. So something to work on after this class is over. If you're in Maryland, I'm just saying, right? But the bottom line is this: contractors love to talk about their work. Contractors love to talk about what they're doing. They'll tell you anything and everything you want to know. And he's like, this is pretty good. Make sure you get contact info. Don't ask him for, I mean, you can ask him for a card. Most don't have them. Ask for a phone number. Hey man, that sounds pretty good. You know, I got another job down the street I'm taking a look at. Is it okay if I text you and maybe have you come take a look at it after you finish this one, maybe one afternoon? The answer is going to be yes, yes, and yes. How you spell your name again? Give it to me again. And when you put it in your iPhone, put a little note to remind you, oh, I met this guy on a job at such and such a street. Use them. So a couple ways to find contractors the right way. Referral from somebody else who's in the game. Contractors that you meet when you go to these properties that you didn't win, but they're working on a job. That's kind of the two number one ways. Stay away from Angie's List. Stay away from Craigslist. Stay away from online. And for goodness sake, if you decide to hire a contractor, after you got to know him, ask about him. I had a contractor that was ripping me off 9 ways to Sunday when I was new in the business. And one day I had a guy come up to me and go, haha, Sherman, I stole your contractor. I'm like, you stole my contractor? Yeah, I saw him working on your apartment building up on Lakeview Avenue. And I'm like, are you talking about Ramos, Nicholas Ramos, that thief? You stole him from me. Good for you. You probably wanted to ask me before you hired him, what did I think about his work? Because I would have told you. That's why he's not on the job anymore. Did you notice he hasn't been on the job in 2 months? Did you notice that we now have this new guy? I think it was Jeff I brought in. So nothing wrong with finding these guys, but make sure if you can follow up and find, because like I said, eventually they go bad. You want to catch them when they haven't gone bad. All right. So we need a contractor. Again, we're not going to hire contractors at this stage of the game, but we do need contractors to give us a cost estimate, and we do need contractors to get us in the properties when we get to the highest and best. Because they can go in the property without your agent, you can't. And you can be their guest. You just need to let your agent know, I'm using this contractor, here's their contact information. Can you please text them the code? And most agents will text you the code too. Okay, but they don't want you going into the house by yourself. But if you go with the contractor, everything's cool because that's how the matrix works. Got it? All right. Title company. Somebody's got to close this deal. You want an investor-friendly title company. You want somebody who understands you're wholesaling the deal. I have seen many a deal blow up at the last minute because the title company all of a sudden realized, oh, you're going to do what? Oh, no, no, no. I got to tell the seller. I got to make sure it's okay with the seller because it was the seller's title company. I got news for you. According to the rules in Maryland, I can't speak outside of Maryland, but I can speak Maryland. The buyer gets to pick the title company, not the seller. Well, what if the seller is a bank and they say I have to use their title company? You tell them that the Maryland, better yet, you have your agent tell them that the Maryland law says the buyer picks the title company. And when you do pick that title company, well, I'm not the buyer, Sherman, it's my LLC. You represent your LLC. You speak on behalf of your LLC because your LLC ain't got no tongue. What's the guy's name? The Lorax? I speak for the trees because the trees got no, your LLC got no tongue. You got to speak for your LLC. Your LLC as the buyer gets to pick the title company in Maryland. That's generally true, I think, in DC and Virginia, but don't quote me on that because I don't do enough deals in either one of those places to say that it's absolutely the gospel. But in Maryland, I know that for a fact. So you need to have your agent negotiate that we're going to use this title company and we want to use a title company that's investor friendly and understands what you're trying to do. Because that's another Achilles heel where your deal can blow up. All right, we need a buyer's list. I'm going to teach you next week how to build a buyer's list. We're not going to talk about that today or tomorrow or the following day. We may need a runner or a bird dog. If you got a really, really heavy schedule, because you got one of them really good government or government contractor jobs and you well into the six figures with all these deep security clearances and you roll up to your work and you lock your phone in the little lockbox and they don't let you come out to make phone calls, but somebody needs to do some stuff like meet with the contractor or run up to Preston Street to form an LLC, you need a runner. Well, a runner could be like a bird dog. In other words, somebody you just throw a couple of bucks to, particularly somebody who wants to look over your shoulder, particularly somebody who wants to learn the business. You're like, hey, tell you what, you can sort of shadow me, follow me around, but I need for you to run some errands for me, real estate related. Don't have them pick up your laundry. Come on now, don't abuse this. But, you know, I need for you to go meet with a contractor, and for goodness sake, make sure you got your iPhone, make sure it's all charged up, because I need for you to videotape it and show me the videotape later, because I can't go meet with that contractor at 3 o'clock. But the seller said, I got 24 hours, and the only time the contractor can go look at the property is at 3 o'clock. I need somebody to be there at 3 o'clock and videotaping what's going on. Some contractors can videotape it themselves. When I was down in the Virgin Islands, and I had a couple properties I bid on through Hubzu, my contractor, Doug, was talking to me on the beach through his iPhone. If for some reason that wasn't working, for some reason the internet, I would have just had him do a videotape. But not every contract is that versed. And you may have to have a runner go videotape what the contractor's talking about and showing the close-ups and that kind of stuff, because maybe you're locked up in an iron dome and can't be available to talk to the contractor when the contractor's available to go to the house. Get yourself a runner, get yourself a bird dog. That's a perfect use of a bird dog, okay? All right, bird dogs are not just people handing out your flyers. Sometimes bird dogs are your runners, your errand, let's say errand boy, but that would be politically incorrect. But your runner, okay? We're gonna need some kind of an assistant. That can be a VA, otherwise known as a virtual assistant, or it can be local. You don't need that when you're first getting started. We will talk about that in greater depth next week when we start talking about putting this stuff on autopilot. But somewhere along the way, your business is going to turn into a real business, and you're going to need some help. When you do that, just remember what I said to you before. Who here is okay with spending 10% of your profits to get somebody to do 90% of the work, so you can keep 90% of the profits for doing 10% of the work? Okay, who's that person? It's probably going to be some kind of an assistant. Somebody who you train to get offers out the door, so offers are going out the door on a regular, consistent basis, so you can create the opportunity for your negotiator and your contractor to go look at deals. You don't get the invite to go look at a deal until you get to highest and best. We're not going to go look at properties to make offers. God's sake, stop thinking that way. That's being held captive and a slave to the matrix. We are hacking the matrix. We're putting offers out in the street, and only when we get that 2 to 5% saying, hey, we like everything about your offer except the price, can you come up on the price? When you get that phone call from your agent coach to say, hey, you made highest and best, that's when we go look at the property. Well, what if that time to look at the property we're not available? We go send our runner, we go have our contractor videotape it or video conference us. Maybe we're out in the parking lot directing them what to do, or maybe we're in a beach chair, or maybe we're on the back of a cruise ship. But we got to get a certain number of offers out the door every day to create that opportunity. Well, what if you're just too doggone tired when you come home from work? What if you just got too much stuff on your schedule right now because you had a security breach at work or some security issue, and you now got to be totally engaged in that? Well, get your virtual assistant to get the offers out the door. Here's the insider secret to hacking the matrix. The currency of real estate is what? What's the currency of real estate, folks? Put it in your chat box. You already know the answer to this. Deals, 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 deals. Well, when we're hacking the matrix, the only way to make a deal happen is if there's a written offer in front of the seller. How does a written offer get in front of the seller? Your buyer's agent works with you to get the offers out the door. And when the offer is pleasing in some way to the seller, they will call you back and say, hey, I like 90% of what I'm seeing, but this turkey of a price you put in here, you got to come up. All we're doing when we hack the matrix is getting the people who want to talk about price to call us back, or more accurately, call our agent back. And anybody who's not interested in talking about price, we don't want to talk to them anyway. So how do we get them to talk about price? We got to put a written contract in front of them that they like everything they see but the fill in the blank, fill in the blank. They like everything but the fill in the blank. Tell me what price. Because then when the person looks at your offer and goes, I like everything but the price, what they're telling you is, okay, let's just talk about price. That's about 3 to 5% of the offers you send out. Somebody answer this question for me. This is your final quiz of the night, I promise. You got to get a certain number of offers out the door. You're counting on 3 to 5% responding. If you put no offers out, something times nothing equals what? You got that right. Nothing from nothing leave nothing. If you don't get them written offers out the door, there's nothing for the other side to respond to. And therefore, at the end of the week, you got nothing. Nothing. As Willy Wonka said, nothing, sir. But if you at least get 5 offers out the door every day consistently, at the end of the week, you'll have 25 to 30 offers. You got yourself a pretty good shot of getting one highest and best. You got yourself a shot at having one opportunity to go meet with a contractor. And oh, by the way, learning something new about how to estimate the rehab costs on a house. You are one step closer to getting a deal. But if you get no offers out the door, you are 0 steps closer. Does everybody understand that? The currency of real estate is deals, and the way you make deals happen in the matrix is you put out written offers. Not the 50 a day Howard mistakenly said. And even he says, I didn't mean to say 50 a day. I meant to say 50 a week. Well, you know what? You don't even necessarily need to get out 50 a week. But you do need to get out half as many if you're playing the odds. You need, and if you are really struggling, not because you don't know what to do, but you're just struggling to find the time to do it, then get yourself a virtual assistant and teach them how to get the offers out the door. Better yet, when we get there a week from now, and I start introducing you to some of the virtual assistants I know who already are working with investors and making stuff happen, they know more about how to write up an offer than you do. So just go ahead and outsource that using the resources I will give you next week to make sure you're getting 5. But I strongly recommend do it yourself first so you know how it's done before you outsource it to anybody. But if you are just truly one of those folks that you just don't have the time, fine. Watch me show you how to do it tomorrow. Do it yourself one time and then outsource it. Be done with it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You're not buying houses based on the contracts you send out. Can I say that again? You're not buying houses based on the contracts you send out. You are starting a conversation with the seller to see if they're willing to be flexible on the price. But they will not talk to you. They will not talk to your agent, and they will not talk to their agent unless there's a written offer in front of them to consider. And by the time we finish tomorrow, you'll know how to write up these offers precisely to start a conversation so you can get to a deal. Get it made up in your mind, made up in your head. We're going to have to find a way to consistently get 5 offers out the door every single day if we're going to have a snowball's chance in hell of getting one deal that week. And if you don't get 5 offers out the door every day, like clockwork, for 5 days, you will have 0 chance that week of getting a deal. If you get 2 or 3 offers out, you might have 1 chance of getting a deal that month. You get 5 offers out, you dramatically increase your opportunities to get 1 deal that week. You double it up, like Howard talked about, 50, 10 a day, 8 to 10 a day, you create an opportunity to get 2 deals every week. If you have no money, let me show you how to do it yourself, because the contract is free. Your ability to upload it or email it is probably free because you've already paid for some kind of email service or high bandwidth internet service, right? And if you got to do it yourself just to get the thing going, do it yourself. But sooner or later, you want to get to the point where you got a virtual assistant or a local assistant who knows what they're doing, who's getting those things out the door. And you're managing them while they do the process versus you doing the process. Okay, and then anybody else you can think of, I can't think of anybody else for this phase 1, but if you can think of anybody else think of anybody that you want to, say, oh, what about this? What about this? Anybody I didn't cover. We got our mentor, our coach, our negotiator, our proof of funds source, typically a hard money lender, a contractor to help do cost estimates, a title company to make sure our deal gets done, we're going to talk about buyer's list, but not immediately. And I'm going to teach you how to build a buyer's list next week. A runner, bird dog, that kind of self-explanatory. Somebody hand out flyers when you're doing phase 2, but somebody who can run to Preston Street or run, right? An assistant. Oh, okay. All right. Everybody got that? When did we pay the $450? I'll tell you when you pay the $450 and not before. All right, has everybody got this? So I want you to be thinking through, who do I know that can fulfill these different responsibilities? And then upload it into your homework for tonight. Now, what if you say, okay, I know what I need, I understand why I need it, but when you come to this third column, the who, it's all blank. Who do we turn to help us find these other team members so we can hit the street with a full-on team? Who do you think we should be turning to when we are hacking the matrix, right? Real Investors, Sherman, Coach, Real Investors, Sherman, yes, all of those are true. But generally speaking, the number one thing that real estate agents bring to the table, even if they don't bring negotiating, right? The number one thing is the ability to communicate with the seller, granted. But the second thing that's closely followed is they typically have a network. They have a network of title companies. They typically have a network of contractors. They oftentimes know where to get proof of funds. They oftentimes are good resources. I'm going to help you with all of these things. But if you are outside this area, right? And you like, okay, Sherman, you know, you're not in Georgia, you're not in Texas, you're not in Illinois, then let's talk about finding you a real estate investor group, and let's talk about finding you a real estate investor friendly agent. Because if they are an investor themselves and they're an investor friendly agent, they probably have all these things in that local market. All right. Diane says, if there's structural damage, is a potential that we're going to need a structural. Yes, absolutely. But you are a wholesaler. You ain't going to be dealing with stuff that's got structural damage your first time out the gate. That's not what we're chasing. You're not going to be chasing abandoned property. So you don't need a private investigator or somebody to do skip tracing. Eventually, when we shift over into FSBOs, yes, you will. So when we use this, and again, the team roster is good for whether you're doing FSBOs or MLS deals. When we get into FSBOs, yes, there's going to be a whole lot of other stuff we're going to need. But to get ourselves started, those things are on the sheet right there. That's all you need. And your agent, if they're an investor-friendly agent, can help you find those things if you don't have them yourself. Everybody got that? Okay, so homework assignment for tonight, number 1, fill it in as best you can. And if there's a whole lot of who, either put my name down or put down my agent, okay? Because that's, so again, that's what we want our agent to help us with. All right, so stop sharing that screen, start sharing, go back to this screen. So does everybody understand how we build out our team and why going after MLS deals is the best way to sort of jumpstart that process? Is everybody getting this? Everybody getting this? Good. All right. Do we need a STR? I don't know what an STR is. So tell me what an STR is, and I'll tell you whether or not you need them. All right, next up. Where are we? Where are we? Are we? We're here. We're here. We're now here. All right. So then, is the deal a go, no go? Again, your coach, who's going to be closer to the deal than I will probably be as your mentor, that's where you get that help. So again, you got it under contract. You typically are going to have 30 to 45 days to figure this out. This is why, quite frankly, one of the reasons why we do the Deal Maker Workshop. So that once you get a deal under contract, you can bring it on a Tuesday night and have somebody who's a more experienced investor take a look at it and say, yeah, this makes sense, or no, that dog don't hunt, okay? And if it looks like the dog ain't gonna hunt, then we exercise our one and only weasel clause, which I will go through tomorrow, okay? And then step number 7, close the deal, get paid, do it all over again, rinse and repeat. And then start the process of automating some of the things that you need to have done so you're keeping 90% of the money and somebody else is doing 90% of the work, all right? So this is sort of, again, a recap, like why do we go after deals that are in the MLS? Because quite frankly, everything you need in terms of team building is already in the hands of somebody who's already actively doing deals. Again, realtor, agent, especially if they are an investor-friendly agent, especially if they were real investors. agent. By the way, we don't call them agents at Real Investors, we call them diamond members, okay? All right, then after we master the MLS portion, then we're gonna go after FSBOs. But guess what? When we pivot to FSBOs, haven't we already put a team in place? Don't we now already, we may have to add one or two other members. Like if we're gonna go after probate deals, we may have to add an attorney to the mix or somebody to run to the courthouse to pull probate listings. But the core team gets built as we're hacking the matrix. This is why we call it phase one, phase two. This is why we start, because if we start here, we can build that team so quick. We're making money as we're building the team. How many people like the idea of earning it while you're learning it? Anybody like that besides me? Earn it while you learn it, okay? If you start in the FSBO side, you're building your team kind of on your own. You're trying to figure it out on your own. There's a million different pieces. Well, not a million, but there's way more pieces and probably way more parts of your team you got to build out that you may never use more than one time. But if you focus on the MLS deals, you can build your team so much quicker. You don't have to pay for your contracts. You can automate this thing, put it on autopilot. Are you guys starting to see why this is why we call it phase one, phase two? Even though we've yet to write up a contract? Like, I want you guys to understand what we're doing before we get knee deep into doing it. Because once we get knee deep into doing it, you're like, why am I doing this? Oh yeah, Sherman told me why we're doing this 2 days ago, 3 days ago, last week. Okay, got it? All right, so we've already talked about our MLS extends all the way up through New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, et cetera, et cetera. I've already talked about going ahead and downloading that. Like, guys, do that tonight if you haven't done it, because we're going to start using that tomorrow. And I don't want to be explaining how to upload the app. Like, I kind of expect, because we've been talking about this app for 3-4 days now, when we get to the section on pulling comps, I don't hear anything about, well, where do I go to get that information? Real Investors Mobile MLS. Well, how do I find that? Oh, Sherman, I'm having problems down. Like, don't tell me that stuff tomorrow. I don't want to hear that stuff tomorrow. That's why for the past 3-4 days, I'm like, download the app, play with the app, get to know the app. If you haven't done it, you better do it in the next 24 hours or 22 hours, because when we get ready to go to class tomorrow, I expect you to have this done, right? Tomorrow, I teach you how to actually use it, right? And everybody's hopefully understanding that, you know, you now have the tools. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you how to write up offers a certain specific way to get that other side talking about price and only price. And I'm going to show you that one and only weasel clause you need, so that if something goes bad, something goes wrong, even up to the day of settlement, you can pull that ripcord and get the heck out of there. We talked about already this whole thing about fiduciary responsibility. There's a seller. Seller has their agent. Buyer has their agent. Buyer is you, right? And we're going to talk tomorrow some more about what attributes and what qualities we need. But understand this: the number one thing you need this person to do is talk to this person, because you cannot and you should not be doing that. We've already talked about why that is several times. You need somebody who can talk to this person. If it's your cousin who just got their license, fine, use them. But you're going to have to tell them what to say. If you're totally new to the game and you're not confident what to say, then get yourself somebody who can not only talk to this person, but they know their way around. And if the thing you know that is weakest right now for you is negotiating skills and a deep understanding as to how to make a deal work, then get somebody who understands that. In other words, the person you pick as your first strategic hire, the one that your whole business hinges on besides you and me, your mentor, is this person right here. And you want to put some thought into, who do I want that person to be? Because they're bringing everybody else, the whole other cast of characters, to the play. You need them to bring everything else in play. And there's some specific things you need them to do. And there's some specific things they need you to do. Do not expect your agent to send out 5 offers a day. Do not expect your agent to go meet you at the property to meet with the contractor. What a waste of time for the agent. You need to go meet with the contractor because you need to understand how to do a cost estimate on a rehab. And quite frankly, I'm explaining to you the day after tomorrow, why if you focus on certain neighborhoods, you don't need the contractor going with you all the time. Got it? But your experienced investor agent, they don't need to know how to estimate a house. They figure that out. And they've either got the skills under their belt like Stephanie, or they're like me. I just call the darn contractor. I have contractors go out and look at houses when I'm not even available. They go look at it. They videotape it. They get me on a conference call if they think there's something they want me to see. And I'm sitting on the beach. But you're new to the game. And you're learning how to hack this matrix. And you need to go out with a couple of them to understand how this works. Does that make sense to everybody? If it makes sense to everybody, give me a thumbs up. Okay. We already talked about this whole fiduciary thing. What that means is a very special kind of relationship. If you missed that part of the conversation, go back and hear it again. I think that was day 8 or 9. We talked about why you, the buyer, should never be interfacing directly with the seller. Thank you, day 8. We talked about why you, the buyer, should never be talking to the seller's agent, because everything you tell your seller's agent is going to go right back to the seller. Don't do it ever. Again, you need somebody to stand in the gap and be in between you guys, okay? Now, here's how we engage our buyer's agent. If we want that fiduciary response, that fiduciary relationship, the relationship that says, hey, whatever I tell my person doesn't go beyond my person, whatever this person tells this person doesn't go beyond, and there's no confidentiality going back and forth, confidential information, going back and forth, we need to engage our buyer's agent the right way. What's the right way we engage our buyer's agent? We have what's called an exclusive buyer-tenant brokerage agreement. This is the official form from the Maryland Association of Realtors. Everybody has it in your packet. Please print it out. Please read it. If you want me to be the person who helps you identify an agent with inside Real Investors to work with you, we have to have a signed agreement to work together. That's what establishes the fiduciary relationship. If you are going to work with an agent that's not a part of Real Investors, you still have to fill that out. So the first thing we will do tomorrow before we get into contracts, I will walk you through step by step how to fill out your portion of it and how to get it back to me. The difference between having it with me versus having it with a Real Investor agent is if you ever decide you want to work with somebody different inside of Real Investors, if your agreement is with me as the broker, I just simply assign it to somebody else and you don't have to re-sign the agreement. But if you have this agreement with somebody who's an agent, if they ever leave Real Investors, or if you ever decide you want to work with somebody else, you will have to fill out this agreement again. That's the difference, okay? Tomorrow, we will go over contracts, but before we go over contracts, I will go over this agreement. Please, please, please read it before class tomorrow, okay? Now, once you read it and you sign it, we're gonna talk about, okay, what do you want your agent to do? And that's a function of, well, who else is on the team and what skills do you have? This is a checklist that I developed. I don't know why it did it, but it basically printed both pages on this slide. But there's a page 1 and a page 2. And on page 2, there's a whole lot of blanks for filling in other tasks as needed. You will sit down with your Real Investor coach agent once you sign your buyer broker agreement, and once you and I have a conversation about who you want to work with. And if you tell me, I don't know, I don't care, I'll ask you a couple more questions. Like, okay, based on what you told me, I would recommend you work with so-and-so, because you have pretty decent negotiating skills. You don't really need that, but you do need this. Or you're going to tell me I'm terrible at negotiating. I'm saying, okay, fine. Here's who you should really work with. Or you're going to say to me, you know what, Sherman, this whole wholesaling thing, hacking the matrix is cool, makes sense to me, but Sherman, I got money. And I want to just get out there and start buying some houses to rehab and flip. See, he used the flip word. Oh, I'm going to buy some houses, rehab, fix and sell, resell. Or I want to start building up my rental portfolio. I'm like, okay, well, then maybe you ought to be working with Stephanie, right? And that's who I'm going to assign you to. We will have that conversation before I bring in a coach to work with you at Real Investors. If you decide you want to work with somebody outside of Real Investors, I would still use this checklist. This is just a good checklist, so there's a clear understanding of who's doing what. It's got things like, okay, responsible for getting X number of written offers out the door each week. Okay, we got to get 5 offers out the door every day, 25 offers, 25 to 30 offers every week. Maybe you want to ramp that up to 50. And maybe you have that conversation with your coach and go, okay, I really need to get 50. Okay, great. Who's going to do it? And there's a place here. He goes, okay, is the investor going to do it? Is the agent going to do it? Okay. Or maybe somebody else, like the investor's virtual assistant. Okay. But we ought to have that conversation and have a good, clear understanding. Well, how many offers do we anticipate getting out and who's going to do it? Okay. If you're working with a real estate investor agent outside of Real Investors and they're not a part of this conversation, maybe you can trick them into getting your 5 offers out the door every day. But a diamond member at Real Investors, no, they're gonna work with you, get the first 5 done. Now, okay, you're on your own. You got it. You got the hang of it. Now just get them done. Now you're gonna have to negotiate some mechanism for them to know what you've done, right? And everybody's a little different on this. I used to do it with my agent where I would send them out and I would just send that person a copy of the cover sheet so they knew what was out on the street. Some coaches say, you know what, I have a special way to upload the offers, and if you upload them, I'll get them out the door. Everybody's a little different on that, and you're gonna have to figure out who you're working with and what their rules are. And maybe if you get to a point that that's not working as well for you, but you've got yourself a virtual assistant and you want to renegotiate that and say, hey, listen, I got a virtual assistant. Why can't I just have them send it out and then send you what they did, in a spreadsheet? Because like my virtual assistants that I'm going to recommend you use are in the Philippines, which means there's a 13-hour difference, which means when you go to bed, they go to work. When you get up, they go to bed, which means if you said, okay, I want you to make offers on these 10 properties today, by the time you wake up, it's done. It's done. There's no conversation to have. There's no follow-up. Like, it's done. And you'll have an email in your email box saying, got it done. And somehow you got to communicate with your agent. These are the ones that went out last night. Expect to get phone calls on them because, again, you don't want to have them caught off guard on something you sent out because they didn't know that was out there. If somebody calls and says, hey, I want to talk about your offer for 123 Maple, they want to have a copy of 123 Maple that they can have a decent and intelligent conversation. They don't want to be like, oh, let me call you back later and then have called. No, you just want stuff to be seamless. All right. So having that conversation, how it's going to get done. Explaining the contract and the process for submitting offers. Well, your coach, your agent is going to tell you what they like to use, what tools they like to use, what manner they like. That's a conversation. I'm not even going to have that conversation with you because they're going to be like, here's how I do it. Right. So why should I tell you one thing and then they use something different? Right. If you have a specific set of tools you have that you like, maybe you've already sort of jumped the gun and bought, some software down off the internet and you spent a lot of money for it and that's what you want to do, use, fine. Have that conversation with your agent and help them understand what tools you're using. But if you don't have any tools and you're starting from scratch, maybe they have some tools that they want to make available to you because it just makes the process easier. Have that conversation, figure out who's doing what. Don't ever let there be gray areas in your business between you and the people that you're working with on your team. Let it be very clear. I'm responsible for this. You're responsible for that. That prevents stuff from dropping in holes and falling into dark holes, black holes, right? Who's going to pull your target list? Who's going to identify your neighborhood, your subdivisions? We'll talk more about that tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Who's going to pull your listings from the MLS? Are you going to pull them yourself or somebody else going to pull them for you? Remember, the access I gave you to the MLS is read only, and you don't get the agent comments. Your agent has comments that maybe says, hey, make sure the offers for this property are uploaded this way in this portal. So your agent needs to be sort of on board with what do you plan on making offers on, because there may be 1 or 2 properties that they have to upload, even if you agreed that they're going to do, that you're going to do like 90 to 99% of the offers getting out the door. But there may be 1 or 2 that's like, maybe it's a Fannie Mae deal, maybe it's a HUD deal, a HUD disposition deal that it's like, you can only upload properties to this. And in order to upload the properties to this, you have to be pre-registered as an agent with this service. And since you're not pre-registered as an agent, you won't be able to upload those deals. So you got to have that conversation, right? So, but again, we'll go through this checklist more tomorrow, but you have the checklist now. Go through it tonight or tomorrow for your homework and be prepared to ask me questions on it tomorrow. Everybody got that? You got to give me see a thumbs up. Cool. All right. Finally, this is your homework. Download the buyer broker agreement I said sign it, send it in. Don't sign it, send it in. Just bring it to class tomorrow. We'll go through it. I didn't get as far today as I thought we would, so tomorrow we'll go through it. And I want to make sure everybody's clear on what it says. You only need to sign it and send it in if you haven't already sent it in, or if you know that you want me and Real Investors helping you. We are licensed in Maryland, DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania. If you're doing stuff outside of that region, if it's Delaware or West Virginia, we can probably make it work. But if you're outside that region, like you're coming in here from Atlanta, you're coming in here from Chicago, LA, Texas, right? We're gonna have to work together to find you somebody in that market, and you will sign a buyer broker agreement with them. If you have a cousin who doesn't have a license at Real Investors, God help you, but you will sign an agreement with them. If you are already a licensed real estate agent and your license is not here at Real Investors, you need to have your head examined and sign it with whoever you're going to use in your office if you're going to use somebody. Now, somebody asked me the other day, if I have a license and I'm licensed someplace other than Real Investors, can I use a Real Investors agent? Absolutely. You can hire us. Maybe you want to hire us to do a couple of them, sort of look over our shoulder and see how we do it, and then incorporate into how you do it. Okay. But wherever you go, you're going to have to sign that agreement. And I'll talk tomorrow when we go through it as to why it says exclusive, and it kind of needs to be exclusive. You don't want to have a bunch of agents working for you. And I'll talk about the exception to the rule of when you want to have dual agents or a couple of agents working for you at the same time. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Next, we're going to go over the contract. The contract is the key to the matrix. Understanding how to fill out that contract a certain way, that is your key into the matrix. So please don't miss tomorrow. And if you do miss tomorrow for whatever reason, please make sure you make it up by watching it in the Facebook group, because it will be recorded. And then again, please download the app and play with it. All right? Everybody clear on what we're doing tomorrow and what you guys got for your homework? If you are, say got it. Give me a thumbs up. Got it. All right. So here's your case study. It's pretty fast. It's pretty quick. It's only a couple minutes. But let's go ahead and watch a case study together. And then be prepared to do your homework. And then I'll see you guys back here tomorrow going over the buyer broker agreement and the contract. All right.
I'm Mike, and this is my wife, Marilyn Loxley, and we're from Bowie, Maryland. Okay, we actually found the deal on Listing Book, which was placed in our hands from Sherman. And after we looked at the house, we felt like it would be a challenge, something that we might be able to have fun with and be able to possibly wholesale. And we were successful in doing that.
We got it under contract it went on the market around the early part of August, and we got it under contract on August the 18th. They wanted 99,000. No, they wanted 109,000. We got them down to $99,000. But then along the way, then they had problems with the title company, and it took from August 18th until December the 8th before we closed. And during that time, we had the buyer that we initially had backed out, and we had to get another buyer. So that lets you know, with real estate, you just have to persevere and keep going. You can't give up. You must keep going.
Well, we actually started September the 2nd, 2014. And since that time, this was our third deal. We've had 3 deals. And it seems like we've made just about all the mistakes that can be made for new real estate investors. But we've learned an awful lot. And with Mr. Jesse Marks, who is the leader of our group, Jesse has helped us to, get around a lot of the pitfalls that we've had thus far in the business. And we've worked very well with him and Juan Shelton, our immediate
real estate
Real
agent.
estate agent.
And for me, I was going to say that my husband already shared that we joined in September 2014. And since that time, we have taken any number of classes, which is apprentice, rehab, the marketing class. We've done all these things to try to increase our knowledge about real estate. And we have really, really enjoyed the road to real estate. And we're still learning.
The apprentice class helped us realize that this is not a me thing. It's a team concept. And we work very well with our team. As a matter of fact, that's how we got our first deal. It was a concerted effort. And we're still very close with all of our team members that we had in the apprentice class. Very interesting.
And if you're brand new and you don't know all about this, boy, you sure will be in a lot of trouble. So we have truly learned a lot.
The advice that I have is to never give up. If you're truly interested in getting into this business, never give up and always try to network with others, because you can learn something new from other people here in this business. And so far, we have gained a lot of friendships and a lot of relationships with other people that are trying to do the same thing that we're trying to do. And that's become prosperous real estate investors.
And a lot of knowledge, and we're still learning.
We're the Loxleys. We got $6,000 on this deal. We're real investors, and we get real checks. Thank you. Woo-hoo!
So some of you guys are asking, are they in relationship to Big Mike Loxley, the head coach of the Maryland Terrapins? Yes, that's his parents. His father, Mike Sr., was a career firefighter in the DC fire department. I think he was a chief, and found out about us through Real Investors through a couple of firefighters who have been members over the years. That's a little old. You know, some of y'all are like, what is he talking about? Probably $100,000 house, right? It's a few years old, but nonetheless, I think the story is a wonderful story. They actually, shortly after that, got their fourth deal done and earned their black jacket. So they're level 4 real investors too. So anyway, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being Sherman, you know, why do I keep coming back? You're killing me. And 5 being yes, 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 yes. I'm loving this, and this is good stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for the love. All right, 5 pluses. Whoa! All right, so I'm going to upload homework pretty soon. Thank you guys for indulging me. Go over your buyer broker agreements, download the app, have that app ready so when we talk about it tomorrow, it's not a big mystery. And I will be emailing you out first thing in the morning, a copy of the contract and also uploading the contract. And feel free to upload your aha moments after I get through posting the homework section in the Facebook group. All right, are we good? Was it good? Thumbs up. All right, thanks guys. See you tomorrow.